Why are there so many shows starring Muppets and dozens of movies too? They said they'd watch every one and they mean it. It's something that they've got to do. So now they've pledged you a lifelong commitment. The Muppets, Matthew and Sam.
Welcome to Commitment, the podcast where two friends have vowed to watch all things Muppets. I'm Matthew Gatos,
And I'm Sam Schultz.
and this week we are here to discuss the June 1986 film, Labyrinth. Not the Labyrinth, just Labyrinth. Some people on the internet get very upset if you say the Labyrinth. But I also want to say we watched some stuff this week where a lot of people who worked on this movie call it the Labyrinth.
Ain't that the way it always goes, where it's just like I make tangents and I don't remember anything I said on tangents, but the people who listen to it know so much more about the show than I ever could in a million years.
I mean, that's true of this show, too. I don't remember what we
Yeah.
talked about last week.
Yeah.
Well, to prepare for our discussion, we obviously watched
Bunny
the film.
Picnic. It was Bunny Picnic. Is
Yes,
that
we did
right?
watch. Yes.
Okay.
Last week was Bunny Picnic.
And that was the tale of the Bunny Picnic. They took the that was supposed to be in Labyrinth.
But to prepare for our discussion, we obviously watched the film itself, but we also watched the Inside the Labyrinth documentary, a couple of clips of Jim talking about the movie on various TV shows, and a couple of David Bowie music videos that he put out for songs from the movie. But before we get into talking about that, Sam, recently you and I played the Labyrinth video game.
Oh boy, did we.
This was for one of our Patreon monthly streams that we do. This is how, if you've ever wondered why we don't really talk about the video games that the Muppets have put out on this podcast, it's because we play them on our Patreon live streams. Most of them are quite terrible, but Labyrinth, the computer game, turns out was maybe the worst.
It was it was maybe not the most incompetently put together one that we've played. We've
Yeah.
definitely played ones that are more like, what
We played like half-finished games,
Yeah.
literally.
This one had some nice graphics. It had a fun conceit where it starts off a text adventure, and then at some point you step into the world of the movie, and all of a sudden there's graphics. But it gets considerably worse once there's graphics too. It was a text-based adventure game with graphics, so it just has those same issues they all have, where it's like, how would I have known that I had to sit on that chair for 4 seconds and then look up, and then and I still don't know the answer to that. How are you supposed to know to do that stuff? You just play it forever?
Yeah, it was very, I think it was interesting because I do think that the text-based start to it
Yeah.
without any graphics sets you up for something you're never, gonna expect, because then the whole thing is that you're playing a character who's going to go watch the movie Labyrinth, and then Jareth pulls you into the movie and suddenly you're in the labyrinth. So very interesting, but very bad and slow at the same time.
Very
and
boring and stupid.
Well, and like I had pulled up the game guide for us so that way we could actually get through some of it, and it was still extremely confusing and weird of
Yeah.
how to get through this game.
I did some of the stuff you told me to do, and it didn't take me to the right place.
There is apparently also a Japanese language game that they put out of this. It's like a completely different game, but a Labyrinth video game around the same time. There is an unofficial English translation out there, so maybe we can find that and play that sometime.
That could be interesting.
But I think that's at least a little bit more of a game.
And then I made the shocking discovery that there's a VR mini golf game set in the Labyrinth.
Yeah, it's a VR mini golf game that already exists, and they
Right.
added some Labyrinth holes to it.
Yeah.
But the reason I brought up this game is not just to plug our Patreon, but also to remind you of something we talked about a while back, of a time when Jim had dinner with Douglas Adams back in 1983.
Uh-huh.
Because Jim had dinner with him. For those that don't know, Douglas Adams is the creator of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Apparently, somehow along the way, this led to when it was time to create the Labyrinth computer game, Jim's colleague from Sesame Street, Christopher Surf, was leading the development of that game, and he brought Jim up to date on the project with a letter that he wrote to Jim in November 1985. And in that letter, he said, Douglas Adams has agreed in principle to consult on the game. Jim's Red Book notes that it's unclear what his contribution to the game was, if anything. But we played that game, and I'm sorry, Douglas Adams, but it sucks.
Well, so Hitchhiker's Guide, there is very famously a text-based adventure version of that he wrote. So I'm sure that probably a big part of it was just like, you know how to do this and we don't. Will you please tell us how? I would say that actually the beginning text part of it wasn't great, but it wasn't horrible, and the writing on it was kind of okay. I would have preferred to do that the whole time than to be in the graphics.
It was mostly how slow your guy moves. Like, that was
Yeah.
honestly the most frustrating part, is that he's running around, running away from goblins and all this stuff, but he just moves so slow.
Yeah, it was nasty. But then when Sarah is in that same part of the labyrinth, I was like getting flashbacks to when she's like in the bricks and you're just walking past bricks forever. It was like captured that frustration pretty well. Put me in her shoes.
But ours lasted 2 hours, which is longer than the
Yeah.
movie,
Yeah.
and we didn't finish it.
My baby brother would be turned into a goblin, unfortunately, if I was forced to navigate that maze.
And if you're curious, you can go back and watch that later on. We save those recordings on our Patreon. So if you have interest in going to watch us frustratingly play the Labyrinth video game,
We
can
did
do
stop
that.
and start playing Muppets Inside, the more fun game eventually.
Yeah, I don't know that we'll revisit Labyrinth, the computer game.
I don't think so. I don't think I have to beat that one.
Well, Sam, we have tons to talk about today. So how about you tell the people what we watched this week?
First, we watched a handful of interviews with Jim about Labyrinth that I'm sure we'll get into as we discuss the movie. So, I'll just move right along to The Labyrinth, a movie which hit theaters in the United States.
You did it, Sam.
What did I do?
You said The Labyrinth.
Shit. Labyrinth, a movie which hit theaters in the United States on June 27th, 1986. Sarah is a sad, lonely, slightly weird, fantasy-obsessed dork of a teen girl. She lives with her dad and her stepmom and their new baby, Toby. And let me tell you, she hates this kid for, in my opinion, pretty understandable reasons that mostly have to do with her parents. Like, they make her babysit him all the time while they go out and do fun stuff. So we joined Sarah on a night.
This is the most Big Brother energy I've ever felt you bring to this podcast.
No, wouldn't it suck if your parents were like,
Oh,
"Yeah,
we
you
want to
can't
go
have
out once a week. Can you babysit your little brother?
once a week? That's a lot for parents, don't you think?"
Imagine being the parents,
I know
where you
parents.
only get to go out once a week.
My parents didn't do anything. And that's the way it ought to be. So we join Sarah on a night where she is once again stuck with babysitting duty, and this time she's had about enough. As Toby screams and cries, she starts talking about goblins coming to take Toby away because she is a weird dork. Unknown to her, she is
Also, the judgment from a huge dork over here, putting down this fantasy nerd in Sarah.
I think the thing that really sealed it for me was that she had a picture of Robin Hood, the Fox version of Robin Hood, in her scrapbook. I was like, I know exactly what kind of person you are.
A sane person who understands that Robin Hood is the most
Yeah,
attractive animated character of all
You're my
time.
wife. You're the same person as my wife who has lots of stuffed animals and thinks Robin Hood is sexy. Because he's sexy. It's true. Doesn't mean you're not a dork. Unknown to her, she is actually invoking a loathsome band of actual goblins who snatch Toby away from his crib. This naturally freaks out Sarah, and as she looks for him, she's confronted by Jareth, the Goblin King, a fushigi ball twirling man who is equal parts sexy and nasty, who tells her that he's taking Toby away to become one of his goblin servants. He thinks that Sarah will be grateful about this, but she's not, so he whisks her away to his realm. She finds herself in front of the titular Labyrinth, at the center of which is Jareth's castle, and is told that she has 13 hours to navigate the maze and reach her brother. As Sarah traverses the maze, she befriends a trio of creatures who join her on her quest. Ludo, a big, strong, dumb beast with a heart of gold, who can talk to rocks for some reason, Sir Didymus, a foolishly brave little dog knight, and Hoggle the dwarf, her most complicated companion, who is hypothetically loyal to Jareth, but sympathetic to Sarah's plight, and he spends the whole movie alternately helping and betraying her. A big bulk of the movie is Sarah getting into and escaping various situations in the labyrinth that are ultimately not particularly important to the plot, as much as there is a plot, and also rebuffing Jareth's romantic advances and offers to become his queen. She ultimately makes it to his castle, bests the goblin army's full force, resists Jareth's final psychological attacks, and rescues Toby, whisking him back to the real world. Once back home in her room, she wishes the specters of her friends a sad farewell in the mirror before everybody busts into her room for a huge party. Then we watched a couple David Bowie music videos from the film. As the World Falls Down, which is a song that's played in the film, as Sarah is hypnotized by Jareth and transported to a masquerade ball inside one of his fushigi balls. A masquerade fushigi ball. In the music video, a lady is printing out like a million pictures of David dressed like a 40s like big band guy. I don't know why.
They didn't have the internet back then, Sam. The only way you could look at pictures of David Bowie was to print them out.
And she's like under the assumption you can only look at a picture you print out once or something. She prints it out, looks at it sadly, then continues to print out more and more. And David is palling around with Hoggle for some reason. The other video is for Underground, which plays over the film's kind of opening credits and sequence. In the video, David Bowie is singing in an underground nightclub. As he walks home later, he starts seeing all sorts of strange creatures from the movie in the alley. And then he turns into a cartoon character and swoops around for a while in the labyrinth. It kind of almost feels like a Jareth origin story. I know that it's not, but it does feel like one.
Well, and that's something that apparently at some point Screen Rant implied, saying that this could be interpreted as background and lore to his character of how an ordinary man wandered into the underground.
I feel like Jareth predates Hoggle, though. He feels older than the world around him, in my opinion, but we can get into that more later. And finally, we watched Inside the Lab. Is it Inside the Labyrinth?
It is.
Oh, no. So, see? Nobody knows what this movie's called. A delightfully David Bowie-heavy documentary narrated by Jim, wherein we learn how the movie was made. We see puppet makers in action. We hear from Terry Jones, who wrote a draft of the script. We see Fushigi master Michael Motion, who won a MacArthur Genius Grant for Fushigi, which is pretty cool. We watch a team make Jim a giant killer robot. And we meet some dance choreographers, most notably to me being Cheryl McFadden, aka Gates McFadden, aka the Doctor, who I have a big crush on from Star Trek that I just talked about a couple episodes ago. She popped up on screen and I lost my mind. Couldn't believe it.
Your eyes popped out of your head.
Like that wolf who thinks that the lady's hot.
Yeah,
You know?
except this was a Sam who thinks the lady's hot.
Yeah. That's right. And then also around the same time in the world of film, in 1986, the summer of 1986, some other notable movies were released. Ferris Bueller's Day Off came out earlier in June, and July would see Big Trouble in Little China and Aliens hit theaters.
Yeah, interestingly, that Ferris Bueller was out at the same time because star of this film and performer behind Hoggle, Brian Henson, now married to Mia Sara, star of Ferris Bueller.
Whoa, bitter rivals in the box office, but
Yeah.
passionate lovers in the real world.
And apparently, I couldn't find many sources for this story, but there was something that referenced that they met during the filming of this because she was filming Legend at a nearby stage. And apparently, this is when he developed a crush on her.
Those movies are made at the same time?
Yeah.
That's so weird. They should have just saved themselves some trouble. Just make one movie.
So I think it's on Muppet Wiki that there's a pretty weird, tenuous description from Carol Spinney of why he thought Labyrinth didn't do well.
Uh-huh.
And he said because it was shortly beforehand, another dark fantasy movie entitled Legend came out, and it was also not a box office success. And so he said with two fantasy movies with a one-word title starting with the letter L, audiences were probably getting the two movies mixed up.
I mean, maybe. But they were also saying, we're getting these mixed up and we don't want to see either of them. So there's a little gap in the logic there.
Well, let's talk about the music videos real quick and get those out of the way. The first one you mostly talked about, As the World Falls Down.
Mm-hmm.
The black and white one that's mostly sexy, and then Hoggle shows up.
Yeah, what? Why? Hoggle gets a lot of play in these music videos. They were proud of Hoggle, which is fair. But he doesn't. They could have maybe picked a different creature to be in this one. I think.
I think he's just the most impressive.
Yeah.
My favorite thing is reading about these. It doesn't seem like they were officially like marketing strategies for the film.
Oh, David Bowie was just like, I love this little guy. Got to get him in here.
Weirdly, also no. It
Okay.
seems like somebody else, maybe in the middle of this, had an idea because Jim has quotes where he's like, "I think it's the best thing he could have done for the film," but like it
hmm
doesn't seem like Jim was necessarily directly involved in the idea of
I
it.
was wondering, yeah, like how the puppet, how the puppets were even used, and if the same people were operating Hoggle or anything like that.
Great question. But both these videos were directed by Steve Barron, who will also go on to direct some Storyteller episodes
Hmm.
and the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie.
Hell yeah.
And it seemed to imply that he was recruited for those two things because Jim liked his work on this, or I think the underground music video more so than this one.
I think they're both pretty good music videos. I think the worst part of the first one that we're talking about is how it intercuts with the movie so much, and the second one doesn't do that as much. But the first one's very disjointed, probably because they were like, this lady printing out pictures is kind of boring. I guess we got to do something else."
Yeah, it feels like 50% standard 80s music video, black
Yeah,
and white, sexy lady, and then all of a sudden it starts intercutting clips of Labyrinth from the
yeah.
printer, and then Hoggle's just hanging out for some reason.
Hoggle in this one is so funny because at the end, him and David Bowie are just walking around like they're best friends, and Hoggle's like, "Sorry, that sexy lady is gone, David."
Yeah, the plot of this one is a bit hard to follow because
Yeah.
they just sort of see a painting on the wall that looks like her,
Yeah,
and
did she turn?
Hoggle,
Did she turn into a painting? But then
I
she's
don't
back at the
know.
end. I don't know
Well,
either.
and Hoggle's like trying to get the painting or do
He's
something with
just
the painting.
curious about it. There's some kind of like dimensional divide keeping these two away from each other or something like that. They're both flat to each other or something.
I think all of our confusion around this aligns well with the fact that this video was not actually released at the time of Labyrinth
Oh, okay.
because Bowie didn't want to release this song as a single. The plan was to release it as a single and a music video,
Hmm.
and then once he had done it, he was like, I'm good.
I kind of like
Uh,
this. I usually hate the slow love song in a movie, but I kind of like this song. It has like a little funky part in the middle that I
yeah.
like.
We will definitely talk about the songs of this movie.
Okay.
But yeah, so this video I don't think was seen for a few years. They eventually released like a VHS like collection of Bowie's music videos,
And that was
and it was
on it.
included on that, but it
Weird.
was not like on MTV or anything at the time. But the other music video was actually released for Underground. Bowie and his little Fight Club band. I'm not really sure what's happening there. It seems
They're
like
just like
they're
an underground music, like an underground jazz club, which I don't know. I don't know why that would exist, but it does.
yeah. But then he's walking down a creepy alley and we see some tentacles in a sewer grate before a weird, scratchy, animated sequence of him getting sucked down into the labyrinth.
I thought that ruled. I loved
It-
that.
It's very cool. It's very like dark Sesame Street, it
Uh
feels
huh.
like.
The perspective is really cool, and I don't know, all the renderings of the creatures are really neat.
But then we actually get a ton of Labyrinth characters showing up in this video. We get the Junk Lady, the Door Knockers, Hoggle again,
Mm-hmm.
this time carrying a match, which made me extremely worried for his latex skin.
Yeah, the only thing that can kill Muppets is fire, so he better be careful.
But this video rules.
Yeah, I loved this one. I loved the context of seeing them in like the real world alley, those creatures. I thought they worked really well. I think they worked really well in the movie, but there's like an alternate reality where this movie is a little bit more like where it's about David Bowie as a regular guy and he's kind
Right.
of like in the alleyways of this city that are like morphing into some kind of fantasy world. But yeah, I thought they looked really cool. But I was very curious, like how they get the door knocker guy. Like what is the process of removing him from the set of the labyrinth, bringing him to wherever they needed to be, or did they like go in one night and just shoot all that stuff? That's what I was thinking about the whole time.
Fantastic question that unfortunately I don't have answers for you. But I do really like they have the hands, like
Mm-hmm.
the helpful hands,
Yeah,
singing along with the song at one
yeah,
point, which is
I thought
very
that was
good.
really cool.
And the video ends with Bowie peeling off his skin and becoming a pencil sketch of himself
Yeah,
that disappears into the ground
he
as
like
Hoggle stands there.
rips his own latex head in half and walks down. Yeah, that was really cool.
But even though Jim liked this video, apparently Bowie did not.
What? What does this guy like?
He said, I found that the videos I put into other people's hands have always been a mistake. Because of my lack of
David.
interest, I didn't get that involved with things like Underground, which I did for Labyrinth. I just left it up, and the result is just not my kind of video. I was a
Oh,
bit lax there. I didn't feel involved.
poor David. I thought you did a good job.
Well, yeah, and it didn't seem, I didn't like, I don't know. He didn't look like he was not engaged with the idea.
He always looks like he's not engaged, which is part of why he's so cool.
Before we get into talking about too much of the other things we watched this week, I do want to lay out that we just jumped from the spring of 1986 to the summer of 1986 from our last episode of this one. So there's a lot going on in the world of the Muppets that I do want to catch us up on. April 10th, 1986, Jim writes in his journal, Kennedy Center Award.
Wow.
He received the Francis Holloman Breathitt Award for excellence in recognition of his outstanding contribution to the arts and to young people. Then on April 21st, 1986, he writes Graham Wyndham Dinner, Auctioned Bronze Piggy.
Oh.
So this is a 1986 fundraiser for the Grand Wyndham Children's Charity. And in Jim's Red Book, occasionally they'll have people who worked with Jim write their recollections and reflections on events. And so this is Michael K. Frith reflecting on this event. The important part of this journal entry is that they had supported the Graham Wyndham Foundation, which was a charity that helps kids at risk. And in 1986, Jim was chosen as an honoree for the fundraising gala. So they donated some select items from Miss Piggy's treasury of art masterpieces, which is both from that calendar that we had,
Okay.
and also from a book called Miss Piggy's Treasury of Art Masterpieces from the Kermitage Collection,
Okay.
which I did order this week. So that'll be here soon,
I
thankfully.
never heard of that.
But one of the pieces in that book is a bronze casting that looks like Degas' The Last Danseur, but looks like Piggy. And they apparently auctioned that off for like 10 grand for this charity.
Wow.
But the reason I really wanted to mention this is because Michael Frith is just really catering to the commitment audience here in the other parts of this post. Again, I am quoting exact words that he wrote here.
Oh no. Okay.
When I joined the Muppets in 1975, I'd produced a series of calendars featuring the Sesame Street characters. The pig had not yet had her breakout moment by the next year, but there was something about her. And so, as the newly minted head of art and design at Muppets, I began to explore her in ways that only print can do.
No.
As glamorous icon of page and poster. I couldn't resist dressing her in lame and lace, sprawling her on silken sheets and bearskin
Oh,
rugs, casting her in
that.
space epics and bodice rippers, and photographing her like a movie star. And so her alternate persona was born, and for year after year, I had the joy of reinventing her again and again in fantasy after fantasy, aided and abetted by the most extraordinary team of costumers, set builders, lighting experts, and photographers that ever shot a willingly armatured, T-pinned, and gaffer-taped rubber pig.
dude's horny for Piggy, and that's okay. There's
That's
nothing wrong with
okay.
that. Is he kind of taking? It feels like he's kind of taking credit for Miss Piggy being popular to me in that quote.
You know, I don't think you're entirely wrong there. I think he's at least taking credit for some of her sexy personality.
Yeah. What year was this that he said when he joined?
He joined in 1975, which is right at the beginning.
Yeah.
He's right that like Miss Piggy wasn't really a
suppose.
thing yet. So
yeah, maybe
I think Frank had a
glammed
lot
her
to
up.
do with it.
Right.
But as far as the print version of posters and calendars go, obviously Michael K. Frith did have a lot to do with our perception of Piggy.
Yeah, I think it's a big stretch to say that this one calendar of sexy pictures of a puppet pig set the world on fire enough that she became a superstar. But what do I know? Could have been the best-selling calendar of all time.
Well, then on April 25th, 1986, Jim writes, I speak at Rhode Island School of Design, a thing that I believe he has done before. But this is mostly just to show that he was a very busy man around the spring and summer of 1986. Because May 6th, 1986, he writes AFI lecture in LA. May 15th, 1986, Fraggle Rock ends in Toronto. So the cast and crew celebrated with a wrap party at Sutton Place Hotel in Toronto.
Right.
Everyone pitched in, apparently, to add different elements to this, including Jerry Jewell wrote a video called Fraggles Look for Jobs, which is a rap video that we will watch in September when we're finishing up Fraggle Rock Season 5. And then Jim headed out to do press for Labyrinth, including May 30th and 31st, a press junket in Dallas, June 2nd, he was in Montreal at a puppet festival. And then June 6th through June 7th, he was in New York for a press junket for Labyrinth. And then in LA for press junkets for Labyrinth.
If Twitter had been around back then, somebody would have been tracking his like private jet
private
usage
jet.
like they do for Taylor Swift. Yeah.
Then on June 14th and 15th, Jim wrote In Aspen for Futures Conference with Jocelyn and Larry M. This was Jim being invited to the Choices for the Futures Conference at John Denver's WinStar Foundation in Aspen, which was dedicated to environmental and humanitarian issues. And he invited Fraggle Rock writer Jocelyn Stevenson and the Fraggle Rock producer Larry Merkin, along with Larry's wife, to join him at the conference.
Jocelyn was the one who was always writing like the veiled environmental scripts, I'm pretty sure, right?
Yeah, which is probably why he invited her.
Yeah.
And then on June 25th, 1986, Jim was once again on The Today Show, a clip we do not have, but presumably to promote Labyrinth a bit more because that was 2 days before the movie itself opened in theaters. But we did get to watch him earlier on The Today Show from April 29th, 1986. Just a couple of minutes of it, though, where he's on the set of Labyrinth looking super cool on the Escher set. And most of this is just clips that we also see in Inside the Labyrinth, with Jim talking briefly about enjoying his work.
Yep. I think does he talk a little bit about the themes of the movie more than he does anywhere else, perhaps? Talks about it being a film about growing up.
Yeah, I think they do that a bit too in Inside the Labyrinth. Yeah, it's interesting to hear the way they talk about this movie and then the way that comes across when you watch the movie.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I can see how that is the theme of the film, but it doesn't carry through. I don't know, I won't get into it too much, but it doesn't carry through to like the situations that she finds herself in that often, I don't think.
I think that's something we will definitely get into, is that there's a few times they seem like they're laying out a moral in the movie or a lesson, and that doesn't really go anywhere.
No.
Or have any effect on it'll have effect like on the next scene that happens.
Yeah.
And she's like, see, I shouldn't take things for granted.
Yeah. Or when the old lady like puts all the stuff on her back and she's like, everything I own is junk. And then she gets back home at the end and she's like, I love my junk.
I know. That was one of my favorite moments of the movie, is when the lady starts stacking stuff on her.
Part. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, the fact that like these lessons are not long learned, I guess. Like they don't stick around.
And she's 14, so she's not listening to anybody.
Yeah. Well, then we watched a couple of interviews which seemingly took place during this Dallas press junket, because it's Jim in the same shirt in the same room with two different people. Wildly different interviews. The first one is a man from Kansas City who starts off saying, we know a thing or two about animation in Kansas City, so I'm going to ask this puppeteer about animation.
Do you know why he said that?
Yeah, because Walt Disney Studios started there.
Yeah, whatever. Shut up.
Oh, I didn't realize you were quizzing me. I thought you were genuinely asking.
No.
Oh, well.
I knew why. Too. I knew too, I swear.
I'd like it to be noted in the public record that Sam knew that.
I knew too. My notes will reflect.
This guy is bad at asking Jim questions.
This guy, at first, I feel like he settles into it eventually. But first, he really wants to have like a philosophical debate with Jim about like the concept of fantasy and making a fantasy movie that looks really realistic. But Jim's like, meh, shut up.
Yeah, well, I think he's just all over the place in his questions, because he's asking him about if you prefer puppets over stop motion animation. And then the reporter's like, hey, you have your right hand poised there for Kermit.
Yeah.
And
I'm surprised that this guy gets Jim to do this.
Twice. He gets him to, even at the end, say goodbye as Kermit.
What kind of dirt does this guy have on Jim?
I feel like Jim just isn't the person to just be like, no.
He just wants to get out of there.
Yeah. But yeah, Jim snaps into Kermit voice with his bare hand and says, yeah, this is naked Kermit over here. And then it's like, I'm going to leave. This is not my medium. I'm not even in this movie. Bye-bye.
I thought this was really charming. I think somewhere along the way, Jim got really good at being interviewed.
Yeah.
He like learned how to think on his feet a little bit more, and maybe like what people think is boring, and just like learn to deflect, but in a more funny way.
Yes. And there's some stuff in the next interview where I'm like, Jim, you're a saint.
Yeah.
But this one mostly moves into the reporter talking to him about people comparing Jim to Walt Disney.
Hmm.
And Jim doesn't really say, "Of course I'm not like Walt Disney." He just said, he just sort of says he admires Walt Disney,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
isn't saying I'm not like Walt Disney
Is he like Walt Disney? I guess he is. I guess
in a
he's more
way.
involved in the nitty gritty of everything than Walt ever was. I feel like.
I think there's also not that Jim wasn't a capitalist, but I think there's a more
Yeah.
capitalist mentality to Walt, wanting to constantly grow
Yes.
what he's
Yes.
doing larger and larger and larger.
Yeah.
And Jim is just wanting to make one thing at a time very,
Yeah.
very well.
It's like Jim is like in search of making the perfect thing, I think. Or he wants to make things that will change the world. Like he
Yeah.
literally thinks that if he makes something good enough that it will it will solve some problem that the world is facing.
Yeah, he even says that in the Inside the Labyrinth documentary. He's like, when I leave the theater, I want to be happier than I was going in
Yeah.
and have a sense of substance, be about life and things that matter to me. A film that would make a difference if you saw it.
Yeah.
And we've heard him talk about that with Fraggle Rock and everything else. So it really
Hmm.
does seem like he wants to change the world through his creations as opposed to, building a giant future
Yeah.
city for everyone to live in.
I wonder. Yeah, I forgot that. I forgot that Walt did want to do that, which
That's
is
what Epcot was
interesting.
supposed to be.
I know. Yeah, I forgot about that. Huh. But I wonder where after like the Muppet Show he decided that's what he wanted to do. I guess he always kind of had the inkling and made a lot of like specials and was part of variety shows about world peace and stuff like that. But I wonder if after Muppet Show he was like, that was too stupid. I never want to make anything that
Mm.
purely stupid ever again.
Well, and he talks a bit about working on Sesame Street and shaping the generation of people.
I thought that was really interesting. Yeah, when the guy asks him if he has a sense of responsibility, and he kind of says he does feel like he has a sense of responsibility.
Yeah, he's like, you're aware of your influence when you have that much responsibility,
Yeah,
and you need to be careful with the way you're shaping kids' minds.
yeah, which is a very admirable thing to say, and I think he does a good job at that too.
Well,
I
and he
don't.
clarifies too. He's like, I'm just a dad of 5 kids. I haven't
Yeah,
I haven't studied psychology or sociology. It's a gut feeling thing.
yeah. It's this guy thinks that Jim is more. Uh, this guy thinks that Jim goes and makes Sesame Street by himself. I feel like.
Which I feel like a lot of people,
Yeah.
you often see the words Jim Henson created Sesame Street, which is just
Right.
not true.
Not even remotely true.
But this guy also can't help himself but to ask about Kermit and Miss Piggy's relationship 2 years after the Muppets Take Manhattan.
Yeah, I was shocked that this came up because I think I didn't. I think I liked this interview more than you did because I think this guy settled into being a little bit more interesting and asking a little bit better questions. But when this came up, I was like, bro, come on. But I
Yeah.
think it was good that Kermit wasn't there because then Jim got to answer in a different way that I've never really heard before. That kind of does allude to when at the end of Muppets, whatever it's called, Muppets Take Manhattan, that wedding was staged by Miss Piggy in the world of in like the real world to get them married, which I still think would have been a funny ending of the movie if they had just been like, "That's a wrap. Fuck you, Kermit. We're married." I think they should have done that in the movie. But he goes into that a little bit, and he's like, "She thinks we're married. Frank thinks we're married. We're
Yeah.
married."
He says, Kermit and I don't think he's married. Piggy and Frank feel differently,
Yeah, I thought
which
that
is a
was really
little
interesting.
frightening if you think about it.
It is, yeah.
But he also does sort of leave the door open because he says, we'll wait and see when we get into another Muppet movie, which obviously,
Which never
unfortunately,
happens.
yeah, it doesn't happen. But it does leave the door open for them to address it in the way that you're talking about,
Yeah.
where they could be like, yeah, well, we're actually married. I know
Yeah.
you think that was just a role you were playing in a movie, but here's the license, bub.
Yeah.
And then the next interview is with Bobby Y. Gant, is the way I'm going to say that name.
Yeah. Apparently a legend of Texas local television.
Yeah, either still is or recently was
She
still
died
on TV.
recently. Yeah.
Well, then, yep.
She interviewed people for 70 years for the same station.
Wowza.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. She just passed in February at the age of
Yeah.
97.
Yeah. She had a big
Wild.
run.
But she loved Labyrinth, which I was honestly shocked by.
I thought that was charming. I thought it was great that she loved it so much.
She's like, I want to go back and watch it again.
The kind of movie that if they had just started it all over again when I was sitting in the theater, I would have sat through it all again. Which
Which is,
I can't disagree with entirely,
mhm.
because when it was over, I was like, I didn't understand a single goddamn thing that happened. I gotta watch it again too.
Also, again, the internet didn't exist, so
Yeah.
what else you got to do, Bobby?
Yeah.
But she asked about the artistic differences between George Lucas and Jim, to which Jim sort of says, yes, we had differences, but in a good way.
Mm-hmm.
Which I also found a quote from Jim elsewhere, saying, when you edit a film with somebody else, you have to compromise. George tends to be very action-oriented and he cuts dialogue quite tight. I tend to cut looser and go for more lyrical pauses. So I loosen up his tightness and he tightens my looseness.
Huh. What a match made in heaven.
Also, the weirdest way to possibly say that sentence.
When he said that George was instrumental in putting the story together, I was like, that makes a lot of sense. That's answering a few questions for me.
While Bobby did love Labyrinth, she didn't seem to love Dark Crystal or Return of the Jedi.
No, she thought they were too nasty.
Too gross,
Yeah.
especially Jabba the Hutt,
Yeah.
who she brings up multiple times in this
Yeah.
interview about Labyrinth.
Yeah. Well, yeah, she busts on Dark Crystal. She's like, the critics said Dark Crystal was too violent and too gross. But did they? Or is that just her?
I don't know. But at one point she starts talking about that and is like saying, like, I think the critics are really gonna get you for this one. And Jim's face is just so prepared to just shut her down. And thankfully I think Jim comes around on her. I think like he ends up
Yeah.
liking her. There's a couple times where Jim looks a little pissed off.
Yeah, I agree. Because this is like, this is such an inappropriate question, in my opinion, to even start to bring up. Like, do you think the critics are going to hate this movie? It's like another misunderstanding of why the filmmakers make movies, not why movie studios make movies. They obviously are thinking the same thing, but you don't have the director come sit down and be like, do you think this movie sucks?
Well, speaking of the reason people make movies, Jim is asked about the budget for Labyrinth.
Oh God, yeah.
Which estimated online budget is $25 million, which, again, for the time, I think was probably a bigger budget movie.
Yeah.
For reference, at the time, Ferris Bueller was a $5 million movie.
Oh, wow.
This cost 5 times more than Ferris Bueller.
And he marches down the middle of freaking Chicago.
Also for reference, Top Gun, which was also out that summer, a $15 million movie.
They have jets, real ones.
So,
one of those jets probably cost like $30 million.
Yeah, so this cost, it was a big budget movie for the time.
Okay, so inflation calculator says that is like $71 million, which is pretty big. Because right now, people are mad at The Fall Guy, that movie The Fall Guy, for costing $100 million.
Yeah, it's kind of, I don't, like, I'm definitely the person who doesn't entirely understand why movies need to cost $200 million sometimes.
Yeah,
But
I understand if it has tons of CGI and animation and stuff, that makes more sense because that stuff just takes forever and it inflates the team that you need. But yeah, I don't.
But for reference, other movies that cost around $70 million, Braveheart, Dr. Dolittle, Shrek 2, Inglourious Bastards.
Dr. Dolittle, the old Dr. Dolittle?
Yeah, the Eddie Murphy one.
Oh, I thought
Not
you
the
meant
old
a
one.
really old one. It's like, holy shit. That was
No.
like 50s money.
Yeah. Secretly the most expensive movie of all time.
They did build like a 4-story robot for this movie. So I guess it
Yeah,
kind of makes
which
a little bit of sense.
I felt like there was some giant animal puppet erasure happening here. They kept talking about
Oh,
building the
yeah.
biggest puppet they've ever built when building
That's
the
true.
Humongous.
Uh-huh.
And what this actually made me think was maybe they are telling the truth and giant animal is a lie.
And he was really not that giant.
Maybe that's the reason we've never seen pictures of a giant animal puppet.
But is
because
the
it
story
didn't exist.
Is the story that it does exist though?
The stories are that they actually built like, a giant 40-foot tall, 50-foot tall, whatever animal that they could puppeteer.
This feels like the thing. This is like our mystery that we have to solve.
This is our cereal.
We have to go all around LA looking for just a scrap of giant animal. Just one little piece of him.
Or maybe we just get like Karen Falk or Craig Shemin back on the podcast or something and say, hey,
Did they build a
we
giant animal?
demand proof of
Yeah.
giant animal.
Maybe
We know you got it somewhere in the archives.
Maybe nobody's ever asked. How does it make? I guess giant animal doesn't even really make sense. I need to watch the
Why?
movie again because I need to look at his hair. I feel like the hair is the key. If he has the
Mm.
same number of hairs when he's giant as he does when he's tiny, then he must have been not giant because they would have to be really thick, right?
He looks pretty big, I think, but I don't know.
Okay. By the time the commitment is over, we're gonna have the answer to this mystery.
I'm more wondering if there is maybe some like forced perspective situation where he is bigger than a normal animal, but he is not actually
He's
like the
just
40-foot tall or
large.
something.
Oh, his hair does look kind of big, doesn't it?
Well, and I'm like remembering the motion in the movie, it looks like
Yeah.
he's really there on top of that building.
It totally does, and like the way his eyes are blinking slow doesn't look like slow motion. It looks like they really just have to operate that slowly.
So yeah, I'm just like when they talk about building the biggest puppet they've ever done, I'm like, okay, but tell me more about Giant Animal
Yeah.
because that was really impressive, and that was about 7 years before this one. This one happened. But getting back to the Bobby Wygant interview, it does mostly wrap up after the budgetary talk, but I do think Jim says some interesting things about the budget. One, he says we don't talk about that, but I think I agree with the reasons why. He says it doesn't help any big film to talk about how much it costs. If you go into the theater to see a picture and think, gee, was this film worth $10 million? He says no, because nothing's worth $10 million.
This is a big problem with like when I look at Reddit sometimes and I see like the box office Reddit pop up.
Yeah.
It's just such a big problem with the way that people think about movies these days. It's just like it costs too much money. First of all, who gives a fuck? You didn't spend that money, so who cares? And also, it's like if it didn't make its budget back and you liked this is the thing that drives me crazy. If it didn't make its budget back, but you liked the movie, and then you get on Reddit and you're like, oh, I can't believe they didn't make their money back. Who cares? Just some rich guy cares. It doesn't matter to you.
Yeah, for me, it's the same mentality that I hate of the people who watch like the Best Picture nominees every year and go like, meh, this one didn't deserve to be Best Picture. But like, it's because they're going in watching it with a weird expectation.
Yeah.
Where it's like, if you had watched Barbie just when it came out in theaters and enjoyed it, like that's one thing. But if you go into it saying like, well, let's see this thing prove to me that it deserves to be nominated for Best Picture.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course you're going to be watching that movie in a really weird energy.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just bizarre. But also bizarre is the end of this footage because this interview is some like raw, uncut footage.
This is great.
At the end, we get apparently the insight into that they only had one camera for this interview, but they wanted to get some reaction shots and some close-ups of Bobby. So they turn the camera around to Bobby and she re-asks all of her questions to apparently nobody because Jim has moved away from the chair he was sitting in.
Yeah.
And it's kind of bizarre and unsettling.
Yeah. She
Especially
also asks a couple that I feel like she changed the wording a little bit where it's like, that's not really what you asked him. That's going to make his answer sound different. And if I was in the room, I'd be like, excuse me.
Which he is there. The only time he butts in, though, is he asks her if she'd like him to sit in for the eye line, which is a very nice director question. And she's like, "Oh, no.
Yeah, I feel
she
like
gets a little
she's
upset.
like rude. She's like, "Shut up, guy." I mean, it is kind of like, Jim, shut up. Let them do their thing.
Yeah, he's like, "I'd be happy to do that." She's like, "No, shut up." But then at the end, she's just getting like reaction shots that they can cut to, where she's just smugly like, or she's chuckling or laughing.
And Jim's like, was I that funny? It's like, Jim, they have to reshoot this now. Stop talking.
It's also like, no, you weren't, but now you are, because that was very funny.
Yeah. And he's just like, you're so good at this.
Yeah, he says she's terrific. And I'm like, okay, Jim, sometimes easily impressed.
He loves movie and television magic, though, you know? So I guess that makes sense. I do really like the last thing she says in this interview. She's like, well, I love this movie. My favorite thing about it, there was no Jabba the Hutts.
He's like, well, I guess you're right. There was no Jabba the Hutts in my movie.
She hates Jabba.
Well, then, it is time to get into talking about the actual film Labyrinth. And I will say at the top here, there is so much behind the scenes info about this movie and trivia out there to read. We will definitely not cover all of it. Much like Dark Crystal, there are spin off books and comics, and Labyrinth has its own wiki with a lot more information that I encourage you to go read if you are interested. But getting into the film, Sam, did you like it?
I don't think I like this movie, and
Wow.
I want to like it, which I say about a lot of movies. I just don't think it's very fun. I think the music's good. Obviously, the puppetry is so good that this is a reoccurring issue for me where I don't think about the puppetry the whole movie. Then
Right.
when I watch the behind the scenes thing, I'm like, oh, actually, this was the most amazing thing humanity has ever collaborated to make up till this point. But the effect of watching it, it falls into, and this is why I wrote down legend. There's a genre from around this period, very around this period apparently, of disjointed fantasy movies that
Mm.
just really irk me. Like Legend, like Dark Crystal was one, Never Ending Story. Even Princess Bride falls into this kind of thing for me, where it's like sort of tongue in cheek, but also like I don't know. There's just something about these fantasy movies where it's like, is it real? Is it a dream? Where the dreamlike quality makes it feel like the screenwriter like, there's an excuse for it not to really make sense. And you're supposed to glean something from it being kind of disjointed. But I do think the biggest thing is something you already touched on, where she doesn't learn anything through this whole movie. None of the characters that she meets are like metaphors for anything. It's like the
Mm.
Wizard of Oz, except that none of the characters have any problems, except that one guy was upside down when she met him. Um, like Sir Didymus doesn't learn to be not stupid or like
I think Sir Deadness is perfect and doesn't need to change
Sir
ever.
Didymus is great. And this is something that's always also bothered me about this movie is that I love him so much and I hate Hoggle so much
Wow.
that I just wish they were flipped around. I wish he had met Sir Didymus and his dog at the beginning and had to go on the whole adventure with him and that Hoggle didn't exist.
Yeah,
This
Sir
movie has a
Didymus is
Hoggle
only in
problem
the
for me.
last 40 minutes of the movie.
I think it's fun to watch, and I do think the music's good, and I think David Bowie's good, and I think Jennifer Connelly is good, and the hand wall. There's a lot about it that's great, but it's less than the sum of its parts to me. How about you?
I loved it.
Oh boy, I had a feeling you'd say that.
I sat and watched this, didn't take notes as I watched it because I hadn't seen this, I think, since high school or college.
Yeah.
And I'm not typically a fantasy fan. And I'm not going to disagree with the points you made because I think you're right about most of the things. I think they just didn't bother me as
Mm-hmm.
much. I loved it a lot more than Dark Crystal. I think the
Yeah.
humor is so
Totally.
much better in this. There's a lot more like Muppety moments in
Mm-hmm.
this. And for me, I think it's more about the same thing you said, where the sum of its parts kind of thing. But I think I enjoyed the journey enough that the destination didn't matter.
Yes, but and also in the movie, neither the journey nor the destination matter all that much. So
Well,
you're
that's
doing it the correct way, I guess.
yeah. Well, and I think like that's getting into the reception of this movie a little bit. I think you're on the same page as Siskel and Ebert because I read their reviews. Ebert gave the film 2 stars out of 4. He felt that the film never really comes alive. And Gene
Mm-hmm.
Siskel said it was an awful film with a pathetic story.
Oh no, I don't agree with that. I don't think it was awful.
He said it was much too complicated of a plot and visually ugly. And he objected to the film's violent plot, writing that the
Okay.
sight of a baby in peril is one of the sleaziest gimmicks a film can employ to gain our attention. But Henson does it.
No, this guy's nuts. This guy's off his rocker. It looks beautiful. The plot
Yeah.
is extremely uncomplicated. You could sum it up in one sentence, basically. And the baby's having the time of his life.
It seemed like in reading the rest of Ebert's review, his biggest thing was that because it is all fantasy, getting into what you were talking about,
Mm-hmm.
that like it doesn't matter. Like
Yeah.
nothing matters here. And I think that just kind of rubbed him the wrong way. But I think, that is also true of The Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, yeah. And the Wizard of Oz definitely like Dorothy is already kind of a self-actualized character who
Mm.
maybe needs to learn that home, like grass is always greener. I guess is kind of what the point
Don't
of
let
that
your
is.
dog bite the neighbor.
Yeah, and don't stand outside when there's a big tornado.
All good
But
lessons to learn.
but then it's also like her companions are learning lessons, but it's not like the farmhands were in the movie earlier being like, "I'm so stupid." Were they? Maybe they
They
were.
are.
They
Yeah, they
are?
totally are.
Well,
Yeah.
then it's not like they're in her dream and when she comes back, they're like, "I'm brave now. I don't know why, but I am."
They don't get to learn the lessons that she learned about them.
Yeah,
She
she's
just
just
more
like
dreamed about her farmhand friends being like, "Man, he really could use some courage."
yeah, she wakes up and she's like, "I do wish you were just not so stupid.
Yeah.
That would be great."
You're an idiot.
I
Now
had
I
a
realize
I
that.
had a dream that you weren't dumb.
That's why I think things like Wicked are so interesting
Yeah.
because that's a prequel to a fantasy.
Yeah.
And I think that's interesting. And I think this falls into that too, where it's like, okay, there are spin off stories and comics about Labyrinth. And I'm like, right, but it didn't really happen.
I would also push back on him saying that the world didn't feel alive because actually one of my biggest issues with the movie was that it felt so alive that I wanted to know more about some of the stuff that was being glossed over.
Mm.
And
Yeah, I think for me, it rode that balance really nicely because I think Dark Crystal did that too much.
yeah,
Where it was like, oh,
totally.
you see that rock over there? That's the ancient rock of mystery that is maybe my father or something.
Yeah.
And you're like, I don't care. Move
Yeah. I
along,
don't
you
want
weird
to
little
know.
wooden boy.
Yeah.
Like, and I think
Yeah.
in this, for one of the things that stood out to me is the times that Hoggle gets to serve as sort of the narrator for Sarah and just be like, ugh, don't worry about this.
Yeah.
Uh, the false alarms are one that I really enjoyed, where there's just
Hmm.
these big rock faces who are like, "Don't go that way. This is certain death." And Hoggle's just like, "Ugh, but they always do this,
These
especially when
guys.
you're on the right track." And they're
Yeah.
like, "No, we don't."
Yeah, maybe I liked Toggle. Like in those moments, I did like how he just didn't feel consistent to me, where he was like world weary like that, but occasionally also very naive. I just didn't maybe ever quite get his motivation.
I think he's a bit of a coward. Maybe he could use some courage.
That's true, but he doesn't learn to be more courageous by the end, does he?
No, but I think you're right because like he does give Sarah the peach and betrays her, and that just kind of ends with Sarah forgiving him.
Uh huh. Does she find out that he gave her the peach even, or like she knows that he gave her the peach, but does she find out that he did it on purpose at any point? Really?
I think she catches on like as soon as she has the reaction to the peach. She's like,
Yeah.
"Ah, son of a bitch, Hoggle!"
Yeah, I guess
And
that's true.
then Hoggle comes back, and his heroic moment is when he jumps on Humongous
Oh,
uh,
yes,
to stop the
right.
little goblin inside of Humongous, and that's when she forgives
Right.
him.
Yeah.
So he does have a heroic moment. I think it would have been nicer if he had stood up to Jareth specifically.
Yeah, I think
He
that
could
is
have
a
they could have killed Hoggle. Like they could have sacrificed Hoggle to save Sarah from Jareth or something.
or like Hoggle has some connection. Like there's something about Hoggle that we learn that's like this is why he is the way he is or something because he's also like not a goblin but everybody else is a goblin. There's just like I want to know more about him. I want one little extra piece of information about him. But you just reminded me of something that I was thinking the whole time was like this would be a very fun Dungeons and Dragons module. Like it has all the trappings of one, but it does not make for something fun to watch to me. But it is fun to think about doing, like being in these situations, and it's fun to watch these crazy guys get in and out of jams. Like, there's no part of the movie that isn't enjoyable to watch, but I don't think it comes together.
I mean, overall, I think like I'm just shocked this movie came together to be coherent at all.
Hmm.
Because watching Inside the Labyrinth, the documentary, there are so many times in that some crew members like, yeah, there was no plan. They just told us to do whatever we wanted, and we did it.
Yeah. I wrote that down too. I was like, every time they'd say that, I'd be like, that tracks. They'd be like, well, we started building the puppet, then we sent it off to these other people, and they built a little bit more of it, and then they sent it back to us, and we built a little bit more of it. Or I started writing the screenplay, but I didn't really know what I was doing. So I thought, wouldn't this be cool? And then it was kind of cool.
And yeah, I do want to disagree with Siskel, who was talking about it being ugly because the sets are
Yeah,
amazing.
the sets are
It
like some of the best movie sets I've ever seen.
it looks very expensive. I understand this high budget, and I will say, to be the snobby film guy, I had the 4K Blu-ray of this,
Uh huh.
and the transfer of this, even on the regular Blu-ray, looks amazing compared to
Mm,
what you can watch like digitally renting.
streaming.
They have
Yeah.
this on Peacock, and the streaming version is not nearly as good
Uh,
as the 4K or the Blu-ray transfer. So if you are a film snob like me, I would highly suggest this 4K scan.
Yeah, I can't understand why he would think that. Like, this movie is unimpeachable from a visual standpoint.
Yeah. I mean, maybe it's more the griminess. Like Hoggle is ugly.
Yeah.
So maybe it's
Yeah.
more that kind of ugly. Like I don't want to look at that guy for 2 hours.
All the guys are ugly, but they're cute ugly. My favorite thing about the sets is that everything has been sprayed down with glitter. There's just something.
It's
While I was
everything's
watching, I
real
was like,
sparkly.
every movie should spray everything down with glitter. How has nobody else ever done this before? This is the most genius, easy way to make it look like you're in this magical fantasy land. And it looks cool.
Before getting into the plot too much, though, I do want to touch on some of the other summer movies you mentioned, because this film did not perform well at the box office.
In the US, at least.
Yes, in the U.S., it grossed $12.9 million during its U.S. theatrical run, and opened at number 8 in the U.S. box office, behind movies like The Karate Kid Part 2, Back to School, the Rodney Dangerfield movie,
Wow. Oh, no.
Top Gun,
Okay.
and Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Oh, I missed Top Gun in my list of movies that had come out around here.
Well, I think it had actually come out like a month before, but it was still
Oh.
in the top 10.
That's what happened with the new Top Gun, too. It was in the theaters forever.
People like planes and sweaty
People-
guys.
People love sweaty Tom Cruise flying a plane. That's brutal. If I had seen this movie in theaters, I wouldn't have been like disappointed. I would have been more disappointed to have seen Back to School probably than to see Labyrinth.
Yeah, no one's making a back to school podcast.
Yeah.
There was, though, some success overseas and in the United Kingdom where it got $34 million. So it at least made back its budget.
Yeah.
But according to Brian Henson, this is apparently the time when Jim came the closest he had ever seen him to turning in on himself and getting quite depressed.
That sucks.
Yeah. So I think we had heard some about how Jim wasn't thrilled with the reaction to Dark Crystal, and
Uh-huh.
how this was, I think, sort of him being like, okay, well, next time we'll put some humans in it. It'll be more charming. People will love it. And then it was like, well, that
People still
didn't
like
really
this.
work either. So I think this definitely threw a wrench in Jim's plans of going this direction with his career.
I do find that. I find its lack of success surprising because it would. This seems like a movie that would have a great trailer.
Well, and I think has become such a cult classic
Right.
that it's hard to put yourself back in the mindset of somebody who was there in the mid 80s watching this
Yeah.
going like, or hearing it, like hearing about it the way you do now with like box office bombs.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. Like,
And it's probably extra hard for something like this where only you and the people who worked on the movie know how hard it was to make it. It's like, I think I said this in Dark Crystal too. They should make you have to sit in the theater after the movie's over to watch them, or even before you watch the movie, watch the making of. So then you have to be like, oh, okay. This movie's too good for me to see how hard it was to make it, which is such a tough paradox that I feel like every Muppet project kind of faces.
there is something like you said where, you can watch this and forget the magic that sort of goes into
Yeah.
making it really easily, that it's the Kermit riding a bike magic
Yeah.
trick where most people watch that and they're like, oh my God, I remember that. And then you ask them how they did it and they're like, oh, I don't know. How did they make that frog ride a bike?
Yeah.
But no one's asking those questions or forcing people to watch documentaries.
Right. Or like in Great Muppet Caper, Frank goes out of his way to mention that they rode under trees to show that there weren't strings, but it's like that doesn't come across. It's just
No.
too good for you to think about it.
I'm curious, Sam, are you a Bowie fan?
Yeah, I love David Bowie.
Okay. I feel like that would, change someone's perception of this movie quite a bit. If you're
Yeah.
like somebody who just doesn't like David Bowie's music, going
Yeah.
in to watch Labyrinth, you'd be like, oh, dear God, this guy.
I found myself wishing there was more David Bowie in it because every time he's on screen, it's just like he's so over the top, but so charming that I wanted a little bit more. I wanted to know Jareth better. I wanted to know what his deal was. Something that's always bothered me about this movie is, and it kind of touches on it in the documentary, which kind of actually made me like the movie better, was I was like, why does this glamorous fellow hang out with these nasty little goblins? Like, why? That doesn't make any sense to me. But then David Bowie's like, he's reluctantly the king of the goblins. Like, he just kind of has to do it.
Which I think you can see a little bit in the Magic Dance sequence
Mhm.
because he's hanging out in his chambers. There's like 50 goblins dancing around him. He looks really, really annoyed. And he's
Yeah.
just like, I sing now. Like, I am tired of you little shits. I'm going to get up and sing a song now because that's all that will bring me joy in life.
And maybe I'll kick a couple of you in the ass while I'm doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. They are really annoying. I would also hate to be trapped in that labyrinth being their king.
Are those all other people's babies?
That's also what I've always wondered. I always picture Jareth like raising him as a new like as like the prince of the goblins or something.
Like, he's taking his spot, not just
Maybe,
becoming one of the many goblins.
but he does kind of say that he's gonna just become like one of his servants or something, doesn't he? Maybe straight up says he'll become a goblin. I
I
can't
think he
quite
says he will
remember.
like become one of us. So
Yeah,
he's
that
equating
might be true.
himself with the goblins as like a crew.
Yeah, part of the goblin crew. Yeah, I guess I don't know, but there's probably a manga or something. Isn't there like a manga of this? I bet that goes over what his plot is.
There is, and there's a novelization as well, which
Hmm.
has some scenes from Jareth's point of view, where he talks about being
Oh,
tired of his role
oh,
as the
okay.
Goblin King.
See, that's the kind of thing we needed a little bit more of in the movie, I think.
Apparently, also though in the book is he's a little bit more predatory and tries to kiss Sarah.
Sure, well, there's definitely that undertone of this film.
Yeah,
Maybe
it's
not
there,
undertone.
but I am really glad. I think I remembered it being creepier than it is.
Yeah,
I think I remembered way creepier vibes about this movie
yeah,
than what I see now, which is usually the opposite of ways that you watched in high school.
yeah,
Usually you watch them as an
absolutely.
adult and you're like, oh shit, this sucks because of
That's
these
a
creepy, creepy guys.
That's a really good point, and he does kind of put across like it's almost like he is so sexy and weird, but also like innocent in a way. So the way that he's like, "Let's get married and you'll be my queen," is just like purely in the fantasy form of that.
It's a little, this is both very weird comparisons.
Hmm.
It's a little Peter Pan
Yeah,
and it's
totally.
a little Edward Cullen.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like he's just been around forever. That he just like, what is anything?
Yeah, like if this was just a 40-year-old dude who lived next door to her,
Yeah, and not
that's a different level of creepy than
yes,
a mystical,
the Fey
eternal
king
goblin
of the
king.
goblins. Yes, who lives in a time beyond whatever. But still creepy. I
Oh,
mean,
absolutely
yeah.
creepy.
I think the way that the camera, there's like the male gaze on her, especially in the ballroom scene. And
Hmm.
that's the part where I'm like, Jareth ain't creepy, but somebody in this equation is creepy.
Yeah, I don't know if it's inside the labyrinth or there's like 5 other behind the scenes things on the Blu-ray that I watched, so I might conflate a few of those. But there's one of them in which I think it's Brian Froud is talking about that scene,
Hmm.
and talks about the goal of that scene is to show that Sarah is wanting to grow up and want to become an
Yeah.
adult.
Yeah.
And in this moment, she realizes sort of what that actually means
Yeah.
and sees sort of the grossness of it and goes, oh, I reject this idea. I am actually not prepared to be an adult.
Yeah. That's in the documentary. And they
Okay.
show the set, which has a big sex pit in the middle of it that I didn't notice during the movie.
I also one of the things I loved about that behind the scenes is that to get the dreamlike effect, they just had like a big fishbowl thing over the
Uh,
camera that's just like rotating this
yeah.
big plastic dome, and I'm like,
Uh-huh.
wow, that's really a bold choice because that could have just looked horrible.
Yeah, it does look pretty good. Yeah, he's like, Jim wanted us to build it in a bubble. And then we were like, well, what if we just put a bubble here? Is that enough of a bubble for you?
Yeah, we can't really build things in bubbles, Jim.
We can build a 4-story death robot. We cannot build a big bubble, though.
Well, at the beginning of the film, the very beginning, we get to see the first attempt at a photorealistic CGI animal character in a feature film.
Not ready yet. Don't do it.
Well, this is the first time,
They shouldn't
Sam.
have done it yet. They should have built a puppet owl. And they do. There is a puppet owl later. This owl looks bad.
I think for its use in opening credits on a black background, it is fine. I think if
I
you tried to mix this in more with like clips in Sarah's bedroom or something, I think it would stand out a lot more than it does just as an opening
hmm,
title. Because like I am watching an opening credits thing, I'm not expecting a photorealistic owl. So a slightly computerized owl to me is fine.
yeah, I guess so. I think I got the impression that it was supposed to look real, that you were supposed to think real owl, but maybe you weren't.
I think you are.
Okay.
I think I think that's just my read of it is that because I could tell immediately not a real owl.
Yeah.
I think because of the setting of like the song playing over just the opening credits on a black background, it didn't bug me that it didn't look real.
Yeah. It looks like you're supposed to be shooting this guy with your R-Wing and Star Fox, though.
I don't think he looks that bad.
He does. Go back and look at him. He's made of various flat
I think you should go back and look at
polygonal.
Star Fox because I think that looks worse than you.
I've been playing Star Fox.
Oh.
I know what it looks like. It looks great. It looks like this owl.
But yeah, this owl came from the team at Digital Productions, which is a thing we've talked about a few times going through the years because Jim started meeting with them back, I think, as early as 1982 or 83 to work on something. And this was what sort of that culminated in this.
I hope they didn't see that episode of Muppet Babies where they were mean about CGI.
I do want to mention some other names that were apparently at one point floated for this film and get your reaction to them, Sam.
Okay.
Magic Maze.
That's just like badly translated Labyrinth.
Sarah's Maze.
Yo, I don't like that. I don't like that.
Trapped in the Mind Maze.
What? No.
Lost in the Maze.
Okay. Better than Trapped in the Mind Maze.
Into the Labyrinth.
Fine.
And Inside Outside.
No, that's not one of the titles of this movie, is it?
That's what's listed on this list I found.
Inside Outside.
But getting a bit more into the plot of the film itself, we've got Sarah pretending to be in a fantasy world, notably reading a book called The Labyrinth.
Oh, well, there you go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think another thing, I feel like I like this movie after hearing Siskel and Ebert talk about it and being like, they were wrong.
You get to defend it against Siskel and Ebert.
I dislike it for other better reasons. And they dislike it. But one thing that I never like is a movie that's like, was it all, like at the end when it's like, was it all a dream? And when you see like, I think the hints that we get at it being a fantasy are interesting, but this one really of like any of those was it all a dream movies does not make any sense. Like, I don't know, it doesn't mesh with the real world enough for it to be like compelling. Why it was it all a dream, to me at least.
Yeah, it does. It kind of just at the end is like, yeah, it was maybe a dream. Her parents are home. Everything's fine. And her friends also get to be here.
Yeah, why do the fact that they all get to come out for a big party and it doesn't end on a bittersweet note is very strange to me. That they're not just like, we're here inside of you. Goodbye.
And that's apparently not the way it was originally supposed to end. Originally, it was supposed to end that she was like looking out her window at her three friends, saying goodbye, and they just faded away. And that was the end.
That's the proper ending for something like this, I think. What's she gonna do now? She's gonna go downstairs and be like, so these three stinky guys live with us now. Sorry.
I mean, you could do a great sequel to this where those three are ruining adult Jennifer Connelly's life.
That would be amazing.
Like she's just like a CEO of a business and they show up trying to like be her interns.
It would be like that Winnie the Pooh movie, except that instead of having to rediscover his childhood, she'd be like, I just have to get rid of these guys.
It is exactly Christopher Robin, to be fair. That is the plot of that movie. But yeah, I would watch that.
I would watch that too.
They've talked about doing Labyrinth sequels for years, and without David Bowie, I think most of the ideas I've seen like put around don't include a Goblin King or include Sarah.
Yeah.
So it's just like a sequel in the world of this.
Uh-huh.
But that's way less interesting to me.
Oh my gosh. If the movie started with like deep faked young Jennifer Connelly and they're partying and then she's like, so what do we do now?
It just fades to current Jennifer Connelly with kids running around the house, screaming. She's not super stoked about her life.
Yeah.
And then she's like, oh, man, remember those good old days when I used to hang out with a weird guy with who rode a dog?
No,
also
Matt.
A dog.
They would still be there. It would fade out, and Ludo would be like sitting on the sofa, like eating a bunch of like chicken wings or something. And she'd have kids, and she'd just be like, "These guys have got to go. I've had the worst roommates." She's got like a shed where all the goblins have to live, who showed up at the end too.
So this is like, so what we're saying here is that they're like her Uncle Joey and Uncle Jesse.
Yeah.
All right, I'm into that too.
She's got Hoggle. He's always stealing all her silverware and stuff.
Just all the kids' toy jewelry keeps disappearing.
Yeah, I think this could work.
You've got Hoggle teaching the kids to pee in the pool.
Yeah, what a nasty little guy. Why is he doing
Oh
that?
man, Sam, this is too good of an idea
I
now.
think
It's
it's a
not
good
going to
idea.
happen.
I think Jennifer Connelly would be like, well, maybe I will do that. That actually sounds pretty good.
I mean, she's done a lot of interviews. She's in the new Jim Henson documentary, so clearly she still has an affinity for this.
If
Call us
you,
up,
yeah, somebody
Henson.
call us. Me and Matt could write the script today. It's already
Yeah,
halfway
TM,
done.
TM, kind of.
Yeah, I suppose.
We'll
Original
mail a copy of this
characters.
podcast to ourselves.
Yeah.
Copyright.
We'll write a script called Into the Mind Maze 2.
Sarah's Maze. Well, when Sarah gets home late, her father and stepmother are extremely mad at her. Her dad is from Star Wars.
He is? Who is he? Is he an
He
X-Wing
play-
pilot?
Close. He's a snow speeder pilot on Hoth.
Oh, okay.
He plays Zev Seneska
Cool.
in Empire Strikes Back. He is the snow speeder pilot who finds Luke and Han after they've disappeared on Hoth.
Juicy roll.
Yeah, he's the one who's like, Echo Base, this is Rogue 2. I
Hell
found
yeah.
him.
Oh, that rules. I would love to be that guy. He does kind of have he's like a big, imposing looking fella.
He's kind of like carved out of stone face.
Yeah, totally.
Like almost like a Dick Tracy villain.
Yeah, they're mad at her, but I feel like they're just not a good communicating family.
I mean,
is part of the issue.
Disagree.
Why?
She was over an hour late, and she knew she was over an hour late to babysit. So. She had agreed, clearly. She's not, oh, you're going out again. She's like, yeah, I was late, but you guys are leaving, so I'm right. But she's wrong.
I'm not going to come off of that I think that it is unfair that she is expected to be the built-in babysitter in this situation. Once a week is a lot for a kid, for a teen who should have friends. She doesn't have any friends. She's a loser. She needs to go have friends.
Well, maybe she should stop playing by herself in the park with her dog as her only friend.
Dressed in like a Ren Fair outfit. Yeah, that would maybe help.
But then Sarah runs off to her room where we get to see most of the characters and scenes that we will see throughout this movie, obviously inspired by things in her room. If you want to see somebody online who has made extremely cool versions of a lot of the props, like one-to-one replicas of the things in Sarah's room, go look up KO Makes Things online. But they have a great Instagram, great website, and they have made the most perfect replicas of things from Labyrinth that you've ever seen.
Cool.
But the most notable thing, and I think one of the easiest to miss things during that panning shot of Sarah's room, is in her scrapbook. The aforementioned Robin Hood picture is there.
Yeah.
But it also shows newspaper clippings of Sarah's famous actress mom, Linda Williams, standing next to David Bowie.
Yeah. Well, there's various photos of her. I thought this was really interesting. They're all like, this lady kisses famous actor. Or she's dating him. Will it last? And if you're Sarah, that's got to be that feels like a good source of psychosexual, deep issues to me. But yeah, there's a picture of her dating David Bowie.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, what?
Which is something I had, I've only watched this movie a couple times, again, back 15 years ago. Never noticed that ever.
It's so tiny. There's no way to notice it, basically.
No, they don't hang on it too long. They don't shoot a close-up of it. I don't think you're really supposed to. You don't need to notice it. But I think it does add an interesting layer to Jareth.
Yeah.
That he is a character inspired by, presumably, famous guy, boyfriend of her mom, who she clearly, I'm assuming, doesn't have the best relationship with.
Yeah. Yeah. A very interesting wrinkle that I do think that this particular element works better subtle, but it could have been a little less subtle. David Bowie's head could have been a little bigger on there.
Just bobblehead sized?
No, just he could have been one of the larger cutouts instead of the smallest one in the corner,
Yeah.
No,
There's
not big head mode, David Bowie.
Well, this is when Toby starts crying and Sarah gets upset and decides to tell him a terrifying story of goblins stealing the baby. I was shocked at how fast this happens. This is 7 minutes into the movie, and she's already summoning goblins to come steal this baby.
Yeah, I'm glad that they just hop right into it.
Oh, yeah. Not a bad thing. I think just upon watching it, I was surprised this happened so fast. So we get to see a closet full of goblins, one of which clearly played by Dave Goelz because he's dumb and sounds exactly like Beauregard.
Yeah.
Did she say it? But the goblins come and steal Toby, just as Sarah wished.
Toby, who is actually,
Toby.
yeah, Toby
Toby-
Froud. Is that right?
Toby Froud, yeah. The son of Brian Froud, the designer of all the goblins and such.
And we see some great behind the scenes footage of them trying to make Toby do anything.
Jim, for a man who's had 5 kids, comes
I
across as a man who
love
has
the way-
never talked to a child
The
in
way
his
he
life.
talks to that baby, where he's just like, "Hello, do you know that your mother's over there?"
Well, and one time Toby goes to wander off, and he just looks at Toby. He's like, "It's a complicated thing." He says it right to Toby's face.
He's just wishing Toby was a puppet.
But it is. There's a cute moment too where he's talking with Toby when he's trying to get Toby to look down the hole.
Yeah.
When Toby's mom is at the bottom of the hole.
Yeah.
And yeah, it is. It's just very interesting, especially when Brian Froud talks about designing the characters and the things for the movie, because he says the line, 6 months after designing the baby, Toby was conceived.
Yeah, gross. Don't say that. But also he's like, and the baby I painted looked exactly like Toby, which is kind of true. It did. But that's only because the baby kind of looks exactly like Brian Froud that he painted also, I think.
It's also just a little blonde-haired baby.
Yeah,
so, like,
that's true.
There's a lot of those out there.
Yeah. But also I liked in the behind the scenes, there's just a lot of putting that baby really close to ledges.
He's got wires on him. He's fine. But yeah, it does seem like there's some moments where it's like, okay, that baby could have gotten a little hurt.
Maybe they were like, well, his parents are basically making this movie, so we could just make the baby do whatever we want. We don't have to worry about it.
I also I read that they originally the baby's name was not going to be Toby, but he wouldn't react to anything else.
Ah, shoot.
And so they're just like, fine, his name's Toby.
That's why Tony Danza's named Tony in some of the shows he's in.
He won't react to any other name.
Yeah.
But Jareth shows up in Sarah's bedroom. He's like a vampire, but with an owl instead of a bat for some reason.
Yeah, he turns into an owl.
And we get to see some of that Michael Motion contact fushigi ball juggling.
Ball, yep. I haven't seen this in a long time either, but I have seen that footage of him like putting his arms through David Bowie. So that's really all I could think about. Like that messes that illusion up, especially when he's like throwing the ball and he's kind of like, ugh.
Yeah. If you've seen the footage, Michael Motion is just stuck behind David Bowie, shoving his arm under his arm.
Yeah.
For some reason, they didn't give Michael Motion a monitor like they do the puppeteers.
Yeah.
I guess maybe it wouldn't work for the kind of thing
he
he's
just
doing.
Doesn't need it, maybe, yeah.
But there is some very fun behind the scenes footage of him dropping the ball like 40 times
and getting laughed at by David Bowie. It was probably like one of the worst days of his life.
Well, yeah, because like David Bowie, they were like asking him apparently like, was it frustrating to have to do this? And he's like, I didn't mind. I don't think Michael had any fun.
Yeah, and Michael's like crammed up against the back of David Bowie's ass, being like, shit, dropping the ball.
Also, what a great stage name.
Yeah,
if it was spelled
the way, because his last name is actually Motion, but it's Moshen or something like that. But Michael Motion is the perfect name for a contact juggler, is right.
But apparently, it's his real name and not spelled like a stage name.
What's that called? Like determinism? Like if your last name's Cooper and you're making barrels.
Right.
Your last name's Motion, you're going to be a juggler of some sort.
Or you're Giles, you have to be a butler.
Yeah, absolutely.
Apparently, by the way, Michael Motion went to high school with Penn Jillette.
Oh, wow. What a fanciful high school they must have gone to.
Or they were the two weird kids who were just juggling down the hallways. I like on his Wikipedia, there's a related list that just says list of jugglers.
We got them all. We've made a list.
If you're looking for a juggler, we got them. At one point, the crystal ball that Jareth is juggling turns into a snake that he throws at Sarah, becomes a scarf. She drops the scarf and turns into a goblin. So I'm not sure if the ball was a goblin the whole time.
No, nobody knows. Jareth doesn't know either.
Yeah, he's offering the crystal ball up as a gift. But maybe it would have just turned into a goblin anyways.
Yeah.
But then when they go into the goblin world and they're staring at the labyrinth and Sarah understands the complexity of what's ahead of her, they don't really explain this arbitrary distinction that Jareth suddenly makes, where when he first shows up, he's like, we have your baby. We will never give your baby back. Uh-huh. And she sees the maze. She's like, wait, that's the castle? He's like, all right, you got 13 hours.
it's Rumpelstiltskin type of rules where it's like, why does knowing his name do anything? Who knows? But he's bound by some law to give her 13 hours. That's just the way it works.
Well, and it is similar to the most annoying thing for me in The Wizard of Oz is at the end, the witch captures them.
Yeah.
And then she's like, okay, I got them all right here. And then she takes her giant sand timer thing, hourglass, and is like, all right, you have this long to live until I kill you.
You better not escape before then.
There's zero reason. She doesn't have anything better to do.
Uh,
She literally is just like, you have this long and then I'll murder you.
She's so sleepy. She's gotta go take a nap. I think Jareth. This one makes more sense because it seems like maybe it's just the time of the spell to be cast or something like that.
I
This
guess,
doesn't.
but you don't have to tell her that.
He has to. This is how fairies work, Matt. You don't understand.
Well, we do get some more fairies real soon in this movie because the first time we see our man Hoggle, not only is he pissing in a
pissing.
pond, but he's also offing some fairies.
Yeah. So Hoggle just is like when he's being like a nasty little freak like this, I love him. Or when he's being
Yeah.
like world weary, like, this place sucks. But then he's also just like a baby sometimes, and I don't like him when he's baby mode. I just like him when he's nasty freak mode.
I think Jareth just scares him.
I guess so. Yeah.
But such a good Brian Henson performance.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that this is Brian Henson's voice
Yeah.
is shocking. I think because so many other puppeteers in this had their voice dubbed over
Mm-hmm.
by other people.
Yeah.
So whether or not it's Dave Goles or Frank Oz or whoever puppeteering, we don't get to hear them in most of the
Right.
roles that they're puppeteering. And so I assumed that was the case with Hoggle.
Mm-hmm.
But no, little 22-year-old Brian Henson out here being
Surrounded
Hoggle.
by British people and saying, "We don't need any of you. I'll do it." But it is really good. It's a great performance. I just have the character doesn't quite work for me.
Well, they talk about Hoggle being the most complicated puppet creature they've ever built.
Mm-hmm.
He's got like 4 people operating 18 motors in his face.
Mm-hmm.
And then they've got, obviously, those people controlling the face. And they've got an actress named Sherry Weiser inside of Hoggle.
Yeah.
And apparently the reason that Hoggle is constantly like umming and ahhing between his lines is because Sherry needed to look out of his mouth.
Oh, so it had to be open as often as possible.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah. There's like that scene of her with her long fingers on trying to like pull that handkerchief out of her pocket.
Yeah.
And or like when they're like, oh, we have to move their eyes at the same time as the mouth moves, at the same time as his eyebrows move. It just is. Yeah. You can't hate Hoggle after you see what it took for all of these people to suffer through to make Hoggle be a thing.
Well, especially watching her wear those, like, the bigger hands and trying to pull the handkerchief out of her pocket.
Yeah.
And then seeing the scene where Hoggle climbs a ladder. I'm
Terrifying.
like, yeah. Like, she couldn't pull a handkerchief out of her pocket. She's supposed to
No.
just, like, blindly climb a ladder.
Most of those fingers aren't her real finger. Like, most of the length of that finger are not her actual finger. So,
And there's just a
I don't know how she
14-year-old
did
girl underneath her that must catch her if she falls.
oh God, yeah.
Notably, if you look up the Hoggle puppet, you'll find some horrifying images of the way the Hoggle puppet aged, because one of the Hoggle puppets at one point got lost from an airplane and turned up at the Unclaimed Baggage Museum in Scottsboro, Alabama, where
What
it
the
is
hell?
still on display.
What?
They have refurbished it. I don't know why the Henson Company hasn't asked for it back, but you can go see Hoggle in Scottsboro, Alabama at the Unclaimed Baggage Museum.
I mean, I guess I don't need them anymore, and it is kind of amazing.
I guess it just feels like they would want it for posterity to
I
have.
suppose, yeah.
I mean, maybe they worked out a deal where it's like, okay, if you ever get rid of him, he does come back to us, but for
Yeah.
now, you can keep him.
Right, like they're renting him out to them or something.
I also wanted to note Sherry Weiser, who doesn't show up in a lot of other things, so I'm not really sure if she just quit acting in the mid-'80s. I couldn't find much information about her. But she is also Marie Dodo, the daughter Dodo in Follow That Bird. And she will be in Mr. Willoughby's Christmas Tree, so
Okay.
we'll see her again. But yeah, beyond that, I couldn't find much more about her career.
Hmm.
So Sarah heads into the labyrinth as Hoggle sort of shows her the way. He just kind of shows her the door, and then he leaves.
Yeah.
she walks past these like lichen-like eyeball puppets that I was really glad they showed in the documentary how they did
Mhm.
that, because I was really impressed when I saw them and couldn't think of how they pulled it off necessarily.
There are a couple in the background that just have straight up googly eyes glued to them.
Yeah, those ones aren't moving or anything. They're just like, those ones don't look like the other ones. So, got any spare eyes?
Yeah, I was watching this with Rachel, and she was like, "Those have googly eyes on them." And I was like, "There's no way they just have googly eyes on them." And I rewound, and they do indeed
They
just
definitely
straight up
do.
have googly eyes on them.
And then we get to meet, I think, maybe my favorite character in the movie.
I like him too.
Hello,
The worm.
just a little worm.
I'm just a worm. I don't know. I'm just a worm.
I love him. I want to have some tea with him. I may have ordered a 1-to-1 scale model replica of this worm
Of
from
the
What a Workshop.
worm? Did you?
I did.
he
It's supposed to arrive later this year after
He
they've
is-
sculpted it.
is quite a cute little gentleman. I kind of wish he went on the journey with her, but I guess he's got his wife to think about.
He's also incredibly unhelpful.
Yeah. Well, no, he's just a worm, and he tells her he's maybe one of the most helpful guys in the whole thing. He tells her how to leave the first room of the labyrinth. Wouldn't it be embarrassing?
Right, but do you remember his actual help is don't go that way, never go that way.
Oh, yeah.
If she would have gone that way, she would have gone straight to the castle.
I forgot about that. He's scared of the castle. He's trying his best.
Although I guess, giving him the benefit of the doubt, if she had told him, I'm trying to get to the castle,
Maybe
he probably would have said, oh,
he would've
go
said.
directly that way. Sarah very smartly brought some lipstick with her on her journey and decides to write some arrows on the ground as she traverses the labyrinth. But we meet the Tile Keepers.
They
briefly.
have a name, eh?
Of course they do. It's like Star Wars. Everything has to have a name. These are the Tile Keepers who keep either flipping over Sarah's arrows or turning them around so they're facing the wrong direction. And they're sort of speaking like mock Italian at her as they yell at her. The first one picks up the tile and the first thing he says, it's in the captions, is "Pasta fazool."
No, really?
Yeah. But then he also says, "Your mother is an aardvark."
Oh, wow.
Which I feel like is a little bit of that Monty Python influence from Terry Jones.
Yeah, I'm confused about Terry Jones's involvement with this, because it said on the wiki, it says that they used barely any of his work, but he's such a prominent part of the documentary.
Yeah, I was surprised at how much he was in the documentary.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he started the script in 1984, and then there was rounds of changes with George Lucas and Laura Phillips. And so I think basically this went through a few rounds of changes. They worked with Elaine May on the script in 1985. And I believe they brought Terry Jones back at one point because they had taken the script to Bowie, like a second draft or something like that. And he was like, "Where'd all the funny go? You took all the funny out of this."
right.
And they were like, "Shit. Okay, let's get the funny back in there." So I do think this went through a lot of rounds of review. There's even notes about how I think Elaine May's work on it was like punching it up like a week before they started shooting.
Huh. Yeah, but yeah, I think it is ultimately a pretty funny script with jokes that work. There's a couple that made me laugh really hard. But yeah, this does feel like Monty Python in a way that is like, I think when I read that a lot of his work wasn't used. I was like, maybe they could have leaned in a little bit more to some of the funny, because those are some of the most charming parts, I think.
I did like hearing him talk about how he was writing the script and mostly was like he would get stuck on a scene and he would just pull out a random piece of Brian Froud concept art and go, "I'm going to write a scene about this goblin."
Yeah, but that is another element where it's like nobody knew from the start where this was going to end up, which, that's fine.
They even say when they were building Ludo that like no one gave them any guidance, and I'm like, you're building like the biggest, most complicated puppet, and you're like, yeah, you'll figure it out. I trust you.
It did make me feel better about when I make people do projects. I'm like, at least I tell them kind of what they're supposed to be doing. But I guess some people make a whole movie and don't know what they're supposed to be doing.
When we get to the magic dance scene, this is the one where Jareth is getting frustrated with his minions. And we learn that there are 48 puppets in this chamber with 53 puppeteers.
Yeah.
And in planning, they apparently planned for 20 puppets. But when they were doing it, they're like, this doesn't look impressive.
Uh-huh.
So let's add 28 puppets as soon as possible.
What a horrible realization. But yeah, it would have not looked good if it had any less than it had. It needed to be
No.
crammed. You know who? I'm just realizing that Jareth has DNA with the guy from the Santa Claus Switch.
Oh, Cosmo Scheme? Cosmo.
Cosmo Scam. Very
I
close,
was
Matt.
I was very
Cosmo
close.
Scheme is a distant relative of Cosmo Scam.
He's the
but
fig to his thog.
but these goblins are Frackles under a slightly different lens.
Yeah, that's a great read. I hadn't even thought about that, but I think you're right. He's got very big Cosmo Scam energy.
Yeah.
I like the idea. I'm sure this didn't happen. The idea of Jim giving David Bowie a tape of like,
Yeah.
here's a tape of Dark Crystal. Here's a tape of something else we made called the Great Santa Claus Switch.
Pay really
This
close
was going to be
attention.
more important.
Yeah. Pay really close attention to Art Carney in this one. You're going to be reprising this role.
And the goblins are pretty funny at times, much
Yeah.
like the Frackles are when they're pretending to be the elves
Mm-hmm.
in Santa Claus's workshop.
Oh man, great part of something. But yeah, the Frackles and the goblins, yeah, they joke around in the same way and are just similarly like inept and take many different body shapes. So it just felt like, I don't know why Jim has had this idea in his head of creepy little guys in a lair for so long, but he keeps coming back to it. Yeah.
What'd you think of the song?
I hate this song. I wish I didn't hate this
Wow.
song too, but
Because it is the like Labyrinth song, everyone's like, you remind me of the Babe.
yeah, I think that part is embarrassed. I find that part secondhand embarrassing. Is a big part of it. I think the production is good. I like this scene, but of all the songs, this is my least favorite song of the bunch. Oh, actually, the fiery song is my least favorite song.
Interesting.
But you posted last night or something on Twitter the David Bowie version of it, and I listened to that, and I was like, okay, I can understand what they were going for with this song in a way that I couldn't. I think the mix of the fiery song in the movie is bad, or at
That
least in
whole
the version
scene
I watched.
is a little weird.
That scene just really stands out as like it shouldn't be in the movie, but if they cut it out, then the movie would be like 15 minutes too short.
I also think it's just one of those things that like they put so much, you can see this in the documentary, they put so much work into that scene technically
Yeah.
that to cut it out feels like it would have been insulting to the puppeteers, and also probably they spent a lot of money
Yeah.
on a very primitive version of motion control technology.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Well, we'll
Or,
talk about
yeah.
we'll talk at length about that scene, I think, because that's just a part of the movie that really grinds my gears. But this song just like, I don't know. There's just something not quite all the way there with this song for me. I don't know enough about songs to like talk about it, but it feels like there's moments where David Bowie is just like not in the right key, or just like something doesn't resolve itself in a way that's just like, this is a weird song.
I think it is interesting that they just like let him go off and write 5 or 6 songs,
Yeah.
record them on his own, and they're like, all right, we'll make it work. Like,
honestly, they work pretty well.
They do, but they don't necessarily, for the most part, have anything to do with the movie he's in.
Yes, the like story that he's telling about the babe is not about the baby. It doesn't seem to be. The babe, I feel like, refers to both Sarah and the baby at different points of the song.
We get back to Sarah in the labyrinth, and she runs into Alf and Ralph. The old liar and not liar guys.
Yeah, this would be the part of the labyrinth where I died, because I can never remember how to solve this puzzle.
Especially, they don't have to tell her the rules. Like,
Matt, you don't understand how fairies work. I do honestly think this is like this is a convention of fairy tales that are more traditional European British fairy tales, where fairies are, and I think like maybe what's that Shakespeare play? Midsummer Night's Dream. Is that what it's called? I think this kind of touches on it too, where fairies are governed by like these really strict rules, and you do have like there's a certain level to which they have to communicate to you the rules that that they are operating under.
They're the troll under the bridge who has to tell you, if you can solve 3 riddles, you can get by me. I mean, Didymus has the same thing. Like, everyone in this world has a certain set of rules.
There's just something about the nature of being one of these kind of creatures where you can be bested and you have to reveal your secret. Maybe because it's too complicated for anybody to ever figure out any other way.
Sarah solves it very quickly.
She does, yeah.
She's like, so this door, whatever.
She's a
I
fucking
am
genius, basically.
well. What's confusing to me, and I think breaks the world a little bit,
Uh-huh.
is after she does that, she says something along the lines of like, "Oh, I never get that right."
Yeah. When did that come up in her life before?
Like, is she reading this book that she's practicing in the park
Yeah.
and stops reading the book and
Right.
goes,
Where is she like,
what's the answer? I always forget the next part of the book.
I won't be reading the next sentence. Or is she like studying for the SATs or something? She's just
Or is
really
it like a
bad at.
Goosebumps Choose Your Own Adventure where she's like,
I
I'm not going to turn to the next page until I remember what the solution is.
I wrote down halfway through this that this movie reminds me of a Goosebumps Choose Your Own Adventure, or just a just a Choose Your Own Adventure in general.
Yeah.
It feels very much like disconnected. Like then this happens, and then you jump down this hole, and now there's a big drill coming at you, and then you run down this way, or do you go this way? Not necessarily in a bad way. Like if this had been the Choose Your Own Adventure branded movie, that would have they wouldn't have had to change a damn thing about it. Except at the beginning, she could have had some Choose Your Own Adventure books in her room, which leads me to she should have had a Choose Your Own Adventure book in her room. Then that would have made more sense.
So after she goes to that door is when she falls into the shaft of hands.
I love this part.
Wild they really built this whole thing for real.
They
Like
show
an
her
actual-
on the rig in this in the making of, just like lowering her up and down with just like people's hands all over you. Very odd.
Well, and that's one of the moments in the documentary. Jim says something like, I didn't realize when we were writing this how many dangerous or uncomfortable scenes we were writing.
He
And then
always
we started
and then
filming
he corrects
them.
himself and says that nothing was actually dangerous. I must say, for the lawyers.
Yeah. Nothing was dangerous because we didn't have any stunt doubles. So
Yeah.
nothing was dangerous.
But I loved watching them in this. This is like one of the best making ofs that I've ever seen, for me at
Yeah.
least, because it does really delve into every little bit of this movie. And I love watching them workshop the different hand shapes, like him and Brian
Yeah.
like putting their hands together trying to figure it out, and then seeing the shapes they come up with at the end and like in the movie. It's genius. I love this part.
Well, yeah, getting to see sort of that moment of discovery of like, what if we tried making the hands talk?
Yeah.
And then he's like, Brian, come here and just do this with me for a little bit. There's some other documentary, like I said, on the Blu-ray that you can watch of the Henson kids, like reflecting back on the movie now. And Brian talks in one of those about how this was sort of the closest he ever worked with his dad was during
Oh.
Labyrinth.
Yeah.
I think you can-
Literally.
yeah.
Touching hands. Yeah.
But I think you can like see there's definitely that, I'm sure for Brian Henson now looking back, some very special moments of working together with
Yeah.
Jim on this movie.
Yeah. It seems like Brian's kind of in the role that Frank had on like I know they were co-directors, but kind of just like the sounding board. He's just there a lot of times.
Well, and Brian Henson also talks about how he like went off and worked on a few other non-Henson pictures before this. Like he worked on Return to Oz and a few other things. And then this was sort of him coming back using what he had learned on these other movies to sort of like stake his claim as like, hey, I'm good at this. So I can do a good job and lead a main character in this movie.
This is all in preparation for him to make the Happy Time Murders.
What if all the puppets pissed in ponds?
Hey, that gives me a great idea.
But Sarah ends up in the oubliette, I believe is what it's called. The room where people are put so that they are forgotten.
I also really like this part because this is some more very Monty Python-y kind of like, you don't even know what an oubliette is definitely more sophisticated than some of the other jokes in this, I feel like.
Hoggle, who is also in the oubliette, is the smartest one in the room here.
Yeah.
He's probably like 1,000-year-old dwarf, and she's a 14-year-old girl, so give her some slack.
There's something I'll get into later when they get to the Goblin City, which probably you also noticed, but I think Hoggle, like, they don't really get into it, but he's almost like he's like been the groundskeeper. He maybe is older than Jareth, because I feel like he's been the groundskeeper of this labyrinth forever, and that's just something that they don't really get into. Like he knows his way all around it and has keys to every piece of it.
Yeah, I could see that. I'd be curious, as far as novelization and stuff goes, to see if there is more about him. Because, I could see him having to deal with all of the new kings that come and go.
Yeah.
Uh,
There's a little hint in the Goblin City.
hmm.
Something interesting, but we'll talk about it.
I say before we get there, he does help her escape the oubliette. They
Don't he
pass through
does
the.
the cool door trick where he's like,
Oh yeah,
"Oh,
yeah,
it's a
yeah,
broom
yeah.
closet," and then he opens it up. I really like that too. This is a good scene.
Yeah, and it's all in one shot. He just like
Mm-hmm.
picks up this door, turns it around, and suddenly it opens to the outside
Two
instead of a broom
different
closet.
places. Yeah.
So good. I wish we actually would have seen the behind the scenes on that one because
Mm-hmm. I'm
I can
sure
like
they were just like
theoretically
turning around a
understand.
big like, yeah.
But they pass through the false alarms and they end up in the sewers of the labyrinth, running into, for some reason, Jareth disguised as a beggar. But then he unleashes the cleaners on them, which is just a big old, like, boring machine drilling through the ground.
The most directly dangerous thing I feel like they face in the entire movie, besides the giant killer robot.
Both the actors and the characters, I think it looks genuinely
It looks
quite
scary. It looks
dangerous.
very sharp. Yeah. And this is when I wrote down that it felt like a Goosebumps Choose Your Own Adventure because I'm sure there must be something where you fall into a tunnel and a big
Big drill.
tunneling machine is coming at you and you have to choose which way to jump.
I did like the reveal, though, that as it passes by, it's a little Seussian.
Uh-huh.
And that there's just like four guys behind there controlling this
Just like
giant drill.
cranking it. Yeah, I really like that too. I love the janky goblin technology that we see. Like when they take that, there's something so satisfying to me about when they take the robot's helmet off and there's just a little guy in it. Like I don't know, it just feels like it would be like a really fun video game to like find all the
Yeah.
different like ways to exploit how janky the goblin stuff is.
Well, this is the moment they escape the cleaner by just sort of pushing a wall down. And this is the moment when Hoggle climbs a ladder, which made me very scared for that actor.
Mm-hmm.
But they are sitting there discussing what to do. Hoggle, once again, is not wanting to be helpful because he's afraid of Jareth. And while they're arguing, the wise man shows up, who
Got
is.
Kazooie on his head.
Yeah, we got a real Banjo Kazooie situation happening here. This is Frank Oz's only puppeteering credit in this movie.
Oh. Is it his
Uh,
voice though?
Nope, it's a different
That's what
guy's
I thought.
voice, but he is
Okay.
puppeteering the wise man.
Huh.
Presumably he's off, doing Little Shop of Horrors things
Yeah.
around this time, so
Yeah.
he was not available for the whole thing. But it's a good puppet, and I think some pretty good characters. I like the bird hat.
Yeah, I like this guy too. I think it's also funny that he like gives them a clue and then wants a tip from them, and also his clue is completely useless. This movie has like such a tough row to hoe because it is like part of the funniness of it is that everything that happens is it's like Alice in Wonderland, like absurd and stupid, and
Yeah.
nobody's actually helping her do anything. But then at the end of the movie, it's like, well, nobody helped you do anything. Everything that happened was absurd, so it's not super satisfying. We did gloss over when Jareth has at this point given her less time on the clock. He's like taken some
Oh,
hours away,
right.
and she's like, "That's not fair," but that's the way it is. And that also feels like a lesson that she's supposed to learn is like, life
Yeah.
isn't fair. I guess I have to babysit my brother, and maybe that's the intent of that scene, but they don't really like hammer it in.
Well, yeah, getting back way earlier with the worm scene, that's when the moral of don't take things for granted
Right.
comes into play.
Yeah.
And then once she goes through the weird brick wall like illusion, she's like, I guess I shouldn't take things for granted.
Yeah.
But then that never comes up again.
Right. Or
and
then
this
it's
is
like then at the end of the movie she like comes out of the fantasy land and she's like, I learned an important lesson. Don't take things for granted. Was I doing that though? I guess I don't know how this applies to any part of my life.
right. Like that's the thing that Dorothy does learn in Wizard of Oz is she
Right.
is sort of taking
no
her
place like
family
home.
and friends for granted.
Right.
And so she wakes up and she's like, oh my God, I'm so happy you're here. I was so
Yeah.
afraid I'd lost all of you. Whereas like I feel like Sarah wakes up and she's like, my fucking parents are home. Damn it.
Good thing I have all these weird freaks now. They can babysit the kid.
Yeah, Hoggle and the baby.
Yeah. These goblins have a track record of keeping this baby alive for at least 13 hours. So this should be fine.
I think I was both shocked that it had already been 5 hours for her.
Yeah, she fucked up that first. She was in that first part walking back and forth up and down the halls for like 3 hours.
Yeah. But yes, it is when she says like this isn't fair, and then in the next scene, Hoggle I think argues with her because she steals his jewelry pouch, which is kind of
Right.
rude. But that's how she gets him to help her out,
Mhm.
and he's like, "This isn't fair," and she's like, "No, it isn't."
Yeah. So yes, in the next scene, she applied the lesson she learned, and then whoosh,
Never again.
forgotten.
Yeah, there's not like, don't take things for granted. Life isn't fair.
Yeah.
Never come up again in the movie.
Yeah, it's like a text-based adventure game, and the pieces of life advice she's getting are like consumable. You can only use them once, and then someone has to tell you
Yeah.
again.
Pick up life's not fair. Use life's not fair.
You don't
All
have
right.
life's not fair.
But then we hear a horrible cry as Ludo, the giant beast,
Mhm.
is tied up in a tree, upside down, as a bunch of little assholes are using bitey creatures to pick at him with their sticks.
The creature design in this is fantastic.
Yeah, the oversized armor on the goblins is all
Mhm.
great. The goblins who ride those little bird creatures through the maze
Yeah.
are great. And I mean, obviously, the little bitey guys. I
Yeah.
don't know what the hell they are,
But
but
they're great
they're
too.
they're fantastic.
I would love to see this kind of creature design in a more like fleshed out, like a Lord of the Rings kind of thing, where
That's why I think you could do as much as I would much rather see the Jennifer Connelly living her life as an adult with her three weird friends movie. She could have a baby and they have to babysit.
it's three freaks and a
They
baby.
You can do both. You can
Okay.
do both, Sam.
Okay.
They accidentally summon the goblins that take Sarah's baby
Oh no.
back to the labyrinth.
And then they got to go in and save
And they're like,
it.
not again.
Why did we say? I wish the goblins would take this baby.
Because what would happen is Didymus would be like, what happened last time? How did that happen? And
Yeah.
Hoggle would be like, oh, well, Sarah said the magic words.
Wow.
I wish the goblins would come and take this baby away right now. And then Toby just disappears in front of them.
We have written the first half hour of this movie, so
And it's
you might as
perfect.
well. It's perfect. It's easy. You might as well give us several tens of thousands of dollars.
$25 million.
Okay. Not to make. I'm not making this movie, Matt. Absolutely.
Oh, okay.
Not.
Can
I'm
we
just
be on
writing
set
it.
at least?
Yeah, we'll have to be on set. We're the
Okay.
writers.
Not all writers get to be on set.
We'll put it in our contract.
Okay. But we get to meet Ludo, who can summon rocks. He uses that power to let Sarah throw some rocks at the goblins.
Oh,
to scare them off.
that never occurred to me that that's what was happening. I think
Again,
it's more
subtlety
like,
is
I think
pretty
it's
good.
more like the rocks are his friends, right? Because he says the rocks are my friends. I don't think what he's
He also has a
doing-
pretty limited vocabulary. He's not going
I-
to say, I summon rocks, Sarah.
I don't think what he's doing at the end of the movie is like being like Professor X and being like, now this rock will move here. I think he really is saying, help me, living rocks, please. So I think maybe this rock is just like his little buddy who's like, keep chucking me.
Okay.
You know, both interpretations are valid.
But yeah, inside of Ludo, we got two puppeteers trading off the roles. We got Ron Muick, the man who I'm sorry I describe only as the artist behind the big creepy baby and human head art. But also Rob Mills, who is the junior Gorg body on Fraggle Rock.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
They traded off the responsibilities, mostly because one man would die if he had to do Ludo forever.
Yeah, I liked in the documentary too, and they were like, Jim asked how heavy he was, and we were like, 100 something pounds. And thank God Jim was like, absolutely
You
not.
guys fucked up. That's bad. It said that too, that it says there's a camera in the right horn of Ludo
wow.
that they could use for a video monitor inside. So they're doing like the Gorg thing where they can see a point of view, not like Carol Spinney who was seeing a monitor.
That's wild.
But I watched this movie in 4K and I
You don't
saw
see
some
no hole?
not in a lot of the shots at least. You see
Yeah.
the horn pretty close up and you don't see any holes. So I don't know what they were doing. Maybe it's hidden somewhere else in some scenes, but
Yeah.
I couldn't spot it.
Seems like a lot of trouble to put the camera in the horn too, when you could put it somewhere else bigger. But
Like under the fur.
Yeah,
Seems like
right.
a pretty good place.
yeah, there's to some extent that I don't understand why she even meets other friends. Like why Hoggle isn't enough.
I mean, at the end, they're all pretty helpful in the big
Yeah.
fight.
I suppose. There's just not something like the Wizard of Oz where it's like, I'm me. This is what I do. Like this is clearly my talent, and I'm spelling it out. I don't know.
I mean,
like
if you're big and you got rock friends, that's helpful to take out swarms
Yeah.
of goblins.
maybe Sir Didymus is a little bit more like you don't. There's just not enough time to spend with him for him to be like, I wish I was
He's
bigger.
a valiant warrior on
Yes.
his noble steed.
Yeah,
I will
I
not
suppose.
take any negative
No,
talk
I
about Sir
know, I know.
Didymus.
I know. My only problem with him is that we don't meet him earlier.
Yeah. They have Sir Didymus costumes for dogs where it looks like
Oh,
Sir Didymus is
he's
riding your
riding on
dog.
your dog?
And I'm pretty sure we're going to get that for Ginny this year.
Please, you gotta.
After we meet Ludo, we meet the two door knockers, where one mumbles and one can't hear because they got the little knocker thing in their mouth and
In their
ears.
mouth and ear, respectively, yeah.
And I think this scene is one of those perfect marriages between Muppet humor and creature shop movie.
Yeah, I think this part is great too. I like when Ludo puts it in his mouth, the door knocker ring that she's taken out of the and he's like, I don't want to put that back in my mouth.
Well, and I also love, just like that childhood innocence of Ludo, just being like, is this funny? Look at me.
Yeah. Yeah, another thing about Ludo that bothers me in a certain way is that he seems like a way better friend than Hoggle. And if I had met
Oh.
Ludo, I'd just be like, you're my new guy. Don't need Hoggle anymore.
Don't need Hoggle. But Ludo, they had to make him not smart enough
Yeah.
so that he isn't actually helpful in navigating the labyrinth.
Sure, just in brute force situations. Yeah.
Yeah. He is the Princess Bride situation. He is the Andre the Giant.
Yeah, it's just kind of sad when she meets somebody who is clearly a nicer, better friend right after she has spent so much time with Hoggle.
I was thinking about this in regards to Princess Bride and like that 1-to-1. You could map it pretty easily where Sir Didymus is Inigo Montoya.
Right.
And
that's very clear for sure.
Yeah. He doesn't die at the end.
No.
In this. But Hoggle, as the Sicilian, is a little bit right. Like he's the brains of the operation. But he also does not get murdered.
Right.
After this, Sarah and Ludo wander off into the forest. And Ludo falls in a pit. Just almost immediately after we've met this guy.
Yeah.
They're just walking and it just thump right into the ground.
Why does that happen? I don't even remember.
Just to get him out of the way.
Okay.
Because he comes back pretty soon.
Where do they find him?
We'll get to that.
Okay.
Because first, Bowie shows up to give Hoggle the peach.
Yeah.
And basically is like, give her this peach and something bad will happen to her. And gets in a sick burn before he ships Hoggle back off. He's like, and if she ever kisses you, I'll turn you into a prince. And Hoggle's like, oh, really? And he's like, the prince of the land of stench.
Yeah, that role. Yes. Yeah, David Bowie's really chewing it up in this part. He loves saying stench.
They say bog of eternal stench like 1,000 times.
I have to admit something embarrassing. I thought the bog for eternal stench was from The Princess Bride. So when it popped up in this, I was like, oh, yeah, okay. Because that's the rodent's of unusual size.
Well, no, there is also...
The fire bog or something, right?
Yeah, what is that called? The fire swamp.
Yeah, that's maybe where they got the idea. Because this came out after that, right?
No, this came out before the movie, but after the book? Oh. That book is such a weird, real, not real book that I don't remember when that actually came out.
1973 book.
Okay, so that's where they got the idea for this. Not really.
That's where they got the idea for the whole movie. That seems about right. The fire swamp is in the book.
Okay. Apparently, there was a story that Brian Froud told that when they did the royal premiere of this in England, which is in December of 1986 for the royal family, which was Prince Charles and Diana. Prince Charles, now King Charles, was the only one laughing at the sounds that the Bog of Eternal Stench was making.
What? British people got to get over themselves.
That dude loves a fart joke, apparently.
That rules, yeah. I love that.
But then, while Hoggle is off getting a peach and Ludo has fallen in a hole, we meet the Fireys, who were, at one point, going to be called the Wild Things.
That's why weren't they just called the Wild Things is one of my biggest questions.
I mean, for multiple reasons, mostly involving Maurice Sendak's lawyers.
Oh, no, is that really what happened?
If you watch the credits of this movie, there is a credit that says Jim Henson acknowledges his debt to the works of Maurice Sendak.
Oh, no. But like in the movie we see, the only real reference to it is the book where the Wild Things are.
Right. But these things were supposed to be called Wild Things. That's why if you hear the original Bowie version of this song, it talks about Wild Things, not the Fire Gang.
Yeah.
But there was also apparently a New York Times article about the upcoming plot of Labyrinth that mentioned it being similar to Outside Over There by Maurice Sendak. in
Oh.
which a 9-year-old Ida's baby sister is stolen by goblins.
Oh, this is the ultimate. That's where they got the idea movie. It all turned back around on Jim.
Yeah, so Maurice Sendak's lawyers were like, "Hey, Jim
Yee.
Henson, how about you stop making that movie?" And they apparently decided to settle the whatever conflict. I don't know if there was money exchanged, but it at least resulted in that credit at the end of the movie that says Jim Henson acknowledges his debt to the works of Maurice Sendak.
Wow.
But getting
Okay.
into these wild things, Fieries, Sam, sounds like you hated him.
I remember seeing this movie for the. I also think I haven't seen it since high school, but I remember disliking these guys, and I think it is. I think part of it is because in every version I've seen, at least, the song is mixed so badly that they're hard to understand. Like, it's hard to like tell what the song they're singing is or like what they're
Yeah.
called, and the Fire Gang is like a weird thing to call yourself. Um, but mostly it just feels like unnecessary, and it kind of feels like at the end of the scene she should become friends with one of them or something. Like, I'm just not sure what their game is. What's the point of this part?
Right, like, they don't really slow her down too much.
Uh-huh.
They like you said, one of them doesn't become her friend and join the journey.
Yeah.
They show up again in her room at the very end, which seems
Right.
concerning.
They're scary. They're almost the meanest ones of all of them because they're gonna rip her head off.
Yeah. But yeah, the lyrics are hard to understand, even in, the 4K fancy scan that I have.
Mm-hmm.
But I turn on subtitles to get some of it, and it's not like even knowing the
Doesn't
words.
answer any questions
Like,
really.
the lyrics are chilly down with the fire gang.
Yeah.
Think small with fire gang. Bad heads in the fire gang. Hey, listen up.
And David Bowie wrote this song too.
He did, which is truly wild.
Yeah. But when he sings it, I think like his voice makes the song make more like the structure of the song makes more sense to me when he sings it. Like, it just
Hmm.
hangs together. Like, there's just something lackluster about the arrangement of this version of the song, where it just falls a little flat for me. But mostly, like, I think it's sad to watch the behind the scenes and see the way that they filmed it, and it looks really good, but it just really stands out as a special effects scene in the movie where it's keyed away and you see the background. They just
Yeah.
really look fake in a way that the rest of the movie doesn't.
Well, that was something apparently Jim wasn't happy with, and I think it seemed like ideally he would have cut this scene,
Yeah.
but it was just so expensive and such a big part of it that I think he didn't feel like he could.
Yeah.
But yeah, we see all the puppeteers wearing black velvet to hide themselves,
Hmm.
and they used motion control cameras. But again, motion control was pretty new at this time. I don't
What
remember
does
if it
that
was
mean exactly?
so motion control, again, I'm not going to say it was invented for Star Wars, but I think a lot of what motion control is today was used early on for the first time during Star Wars.
Hmm.
So this is when you have a camera on a gimbal, a dolly, whatever like that, and you use a computer to record its movements so that you can have the camera do the exact same movements as many times as possible.
Oh, okay.
So think of this when they're filming something like Orphan Black,
Yeah.
and you need 6 of the same woman in the same scene, but you have a moving
Ah.
camera moving through an apartment.
Uh-huh.
What you do is you have your camera move through the apartment one time with her doing something, and then it goes back to one, and the computer has all of the movements, the focal changes, the zooms, everything programmed into it, so it can do the exact same motion every single time.
Huh.
And so that
Okay.
way you can cut those together to make it a smooth thing.
Yeah.
Star Wars used that for moving past the models of the spaceships and then
Right.
filming like background plates and things,
Yeah.
and partially too just to get smooth movement past the ships and be able to get the camera within centimeters of the model without a cameraman shoving a camera into the side of the Death Star or something.
Yeah.
Um,
Huh.
but the way Jim talks about it, it's clearly very early on, because he says, and notably, George Lucas is on set during this
Right. Yeah.
scene, um, but he calls it a computer-powered camera, and they'll
Oh.
put it together later in the laboratory.
Right. Okay, that's what he was talking about.
Yeah.
Right, the laboratory.
I also love that Terry Jones is in the documentary talking about like, oh, this is just such a wonderful idea we had where characters are taking off their heads and throwing their heads around, and it cuts to Jim going, yeah, that was really hard to do.
I think it's cool. I like the idea of a Muppet who can take itself apart and put itself back together. I think that's a great concept. I do think the addition of the fact that they can make fire is
Yeah.
like there's a hat on a hat situation going on there.
Yeah.
And why not? Maybe they could have just called them like the Wild Gang instead of the Fire Gang
Also,
or
like the
something like that.
reggae vibe that they got going on. There's like 8
Strange.
hats on these hats.
Yeah. Yes. So that part is just like genuinely confusing.
But you get to hear Kevin Clash extremely clearly as Elmo the
Y-
Fiery
Yep.
he
You
yells about
do.
taking her head off.
You do get Elmo screaming about beheading someone, which is
Or
a nice little treat.
maybe a little bit more Baby Sinclair, I think it sounded like.
Oh yeah, that's true.
But at the end, Hoggle saves her by pulling her up on a rope. Even the way they get rid of them isn't really clear because like one of them flies up with its head chasing her
Uh-huh.
and doesn't follow them for any reason. He's just
Nah.
like, all right, you win.
They kind of just like where they live, I guess.
Yeah.
But this again would be a fun Dungeons and Dragons encounter.
Mm-hmm.
Just not a fun part of a movie to watch.
I am sure there is some sort of tabletop
Yeah.
thing with
Yeah.
Labyrinth. There is
It'd
so
be
much
so
merch
easy.
and
Uh-huh.
spin-off stuff of Labyrinth out there. There has to be some sort of D&D tabletop game with
Yeah.
Labyrinth characters. And
Yeah.
I'm sure you can even get little great minifigs of them or something.
Oh yeah, you're probably right. And if not, another great Kermitman idea. You guys owe
Yeah.
us a lot of money out there.
$26 million.
Yeah.
Well, of course, Sarah thanks Hoggle by kissing him, which does instantly send them down a chute to the bog of eternal stench.
Oh, he was right. He's gonna make
Yeah.
him the Princess Stench.
The moment they kiss, zoop, right down.
Wow.
And the bog of eternal stench is pretty much just one big fart joke with a
Yeah.
lot of buildup and threats throughout the film. And they are on this cliff face trying to scoot along, and they do fall off, but thankfully, they fall off to a conveniently located Ludo. So they all reunite, and they see a bridge that they're going to cross, but they can't cross because who is there to stop them? It's Sir
Should I tell?
Didymus.
Oh, okay. And why is he there to stop them? I don't know.
It's his role. He's a fairy or whatever you said, right?
I suppose you're right. You're right. He's a fairy.
But they trick him just as easily as they trick Alf and Ralph earlier. I just realized that like we had 2 characters in this movie that are essentially Alf and Rolf.
Should have just been them two. Can you imagine a collaboration between those 2 characters?
Oh,
They would actually get along really well, I think.
oh yeah, they're partying with like Spuds
Yeah.
McKenzie or whoever
Yeah.
later on.
Yeah, they're all surfing on one surfboard.
But they do get past Sir Didymus because his whole role is like no one can cross this bridge without my permission. And
Oh,
they're like,
yeah.
well, can we have your permission? He's like, huh. I guess so.
Yes. That part is also quite funny and very Gonzo-y. Like I could really easily picture that like his voice coming out of this character.
And well, that's the thing is like Sir Didymus is performed by Dave Goelz.
Yeah.
And feels like a Dave Goelz character, even though Dave Goelz is not doing the voice.
Yeah. I'm sure on set he probably did, huh?
Yes, I am sure there is great behind the scenes footage of, Frank Oz and Dave Goelz doing the voices of these. We get to see a little bit of Jim doing one of the goblins
Yeah,
at the
right.
very beginning scene. We get a behind the scenes thing where he's like, did she say it? And it
Yeah.
doesn't sound at all like he does in the movie. So
Yeah, yeah.
I am sure somewhere out there is Sir Didymus footage of Dave Goelz.
I feel like that maybe would have been. I don't know why they didn't do that. I guess why you have to recast those voice actors, but
I think partially to give it some gravitas, because if you look up a lot of the actors they got, much like Dark Crystal, these actors have done a lot of stuff. Like,
okay.
One of them is in like 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Oh.
And like this guy who did Sir Didymus, I think was like a famous comic actor in England. So they got people who at the time would have been big names that people probably would have known, or at least big enough that you'd be like, oh, that guy.
If you're British, especially, he'd be like
Yeah,
one of
yeah.
our 10 celebrities.
But I have a question for you, Sam, before we move on from the bog here.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go a little PG. But
Okay.
kiss, marry, kill
Oh, these
Sir
3.
Didymus, Ludo, and Hoggle.
Hoggle's getting it for sure. He's dead.
I didn't know what kind of getting it you meant.
No, yeah, right. No. Hoggle's done for. No question asked. Mary, I don't really want to
You
fuck
have
either.
to.
I don't want.
I said kiss.
Okay, I don't want to kiss either of them. Who would I marry? I'd marry Ludo probably. Sir Didymus is annoying. I don't want to have
You gotta
sex with
smooch
him.
him.
I
You gotta
don't want.
smooch Sir Didymus.
If it really genuinely was just a, I would kiss him. He's a cute little doggy, but I wouldn't make love to him. But Ludo would be helpful around the house. Ludo could mow the lawn. If
It
you
would be
just
hard to kill Ludo. Like, not just physically, but also, like, emotionally. Having to do that.
oh yeah,
Sam, friend?
I understand. You do? Dear God, I don't understand.
Stab Ludo.
You'd have like the gun up to him and he'd like move it to where it would actually kill him. Shoot here. It better.
Ludo, brain, chest.
Well, what about you?
I think you've got the right order. I think you have to.
Mm.
Like, I don't dislike Hoggle as much as you do, but I think I can't kill Sir Didymus or Ludo.
No, that would be too horrible. Maybe you just push him into the bog of eternal stench instead of kill.
Yeah.
Stench, kiss, or marry. We got to think of a new one for Mary too, I guess.
Well, they end up almost falling in the bog after Ludo and Ambrosius walk across those stepping stones
Mhm.
quite precariously.
If you touch even one little bit of it, you stink forever. That's very evocative. I like that concept.
I think that's why they mention it like 5 times before we see the bog.
That's true. I'm just really wondering now if I would marry Jareth if I was in her situation. I would be so tempted. I would do such a worse job than her because it would be like, this place kind of rules. This place is kind of fun. Could we torture people in the maze forever together? And
Oh, we
say,
can play mini golf here?
"Absolutely."
Dope.
You got a mini golf course. Man,
I met a
have
cool
to go-
worm. Can he live in the castle too?
Yeah.
You seem pretty cool.
I have a deadbeat, super famous mom who's smooching people. My dad seems fine, but I have to babysit every night. So I think I'll stay in the magical realm probably.
Well, this is when, while recovering from the journey they just had through the bog, Hoggle gives Sarah the peach, which sends her to the magic ballroom scene.
The magic
Choreographed
Tushigi
by Gates
ballroom.
McFadden.
Yes, God bless her. I was so excited when she showed up, like I already said. I called Rachel into the room. I was like, come see who it is. I had no idea that she was a choreographer also.
Yeah, I feel like she definitely did some choreography previously that we had talked about on this podcast because it didn't feel completely unfamiliar to me.
Okay.
When I learned this. Yes, she she directed the creature sequences in Dream Child.
Oh, yeah. I thought that was really interesting too, that she wasn't actually just a dance choreographer. She was also like the puppet choreographer.
Yeah, for puppet movement, which
Yeah.
it seems like something that Jim would have a pretty good eye for. And I don't know. I like the idea that it's like incorporating movement from other things into the puppet movement. But yeah, I never would have guessed Gates McFadden was such an integral part of Muppet history.
Me either. Yeah.
Like in the Muppets Take Manhattan, she's choreographing whatever this.
That's wild.
Yeah. And in our heads, dating Doc.
That's right. She's an integral part of Kermitman as well.
We talked a bit about how unsettling this ballroom scene already is. But I will say my favorite moment of it is the fact that Sarah breaks free from it, like of her own volition because of her brother.
Yeah. How so? Because she remembers Toby exists? Is that what it is?
Yeah, because this is like clearly like the big temptation moment that's like, look what you could have, Sarah.
Right.
And you just forget about your brother. And she's like, oh, no, I love Toby. I must save him. And so she picks up a chair and breaks the glass of the bubble.
Yeah.
And when she falls out of the ballroom, she sort of like trickles down and lands in a junkyard where we get to meet the junk lady.
Yeah, these guys are cool. There's multiple junk ladies, I believe.
Yeah, but there's like the main junk lady that ends up back in her bedroom with her.
Oh, yeah, right.
And that junk lady is performed by Karen Prell.
Yes.
Red Fraggle.
Uh-huh. Are these junk ladies other women that he's lured into the maze?
I mean, I think it's much like the goblin thing where we don't really get a clear answer on that. Maybe in the novelization or manga or something like that, we do learn a bit more. But
because they are trying to turn her into a junk lady is what it seems like, right?
Well, but I think there's also some backstory somewhere about the junk ladies supposed to being sort of like a motherly caretaker character to Jareth.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's early versions of the script where the junk lady was actually going to be a puppet that was operated by Jareth to distract Sarah from her quest.
Oh, weird. So a puppet in the universe of the movie too.
Correct. Much
Okay.
like the beggar costume, I think. But yeah, this is controlled by Karen Prell, who her head is up underneath the pile of trash, and her hand is down like by her waist, performing the head of the junk lady.
Right.
But yeah, this is the great moment where she takes her back to her room and starts just like stacking stuff on her.
Yeah, when she's like putting all of the toys in her room on her back, and Sarah's like, everything I own is junk, which could be like, I disagree. I think everything you own is precious and you should never get rid of anything. But this could also be a really powerful lesson of the movie if it didn't just come absolutely out of nowhere right now.
Much like the life isn't fair, much like the don't take things for granted, this like my brother is the most important thing and all my things don't matter. It matters for this next 2 minutes
Yeah.
to motivate her next action,
Yeah.
but doesn't ultimately matter because like you said at the end, she's like, "Yay, all my stuff is here."
And I have a bunch of new little guys. And
Yeah.
if the movie had ended with her like hugging Toby or something, that would have been nice, right?
I think maybe if she had to give up something for Toby
Oh.
and not just like this life of eternal goblin queendom.
Yeah,
like
right. It's like that music
but
box she keeps looking at or something. If it had been like, this was given to me by my mother, and it's like,
right.
you gotta forget about her. She's no good. And then Jareth's like, that's a good music box. I take that instead of you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But she breaks out of this room after she realizes that it's a fake version of her room. And they get to the Goblin City finally, where they meet Humongous.
And this guy rules. This part's really cool, I think.
He's a giant metal puppet that comes out of the door of the Goblin City. And yeah, he's a 15-foot puppet with very primitive, scary metal tube. It's intricate.
Skeleton?
Yeah.
I
They
really
show,
assumed this was a guy in a suit until I
yeah,
saw that.
that would have been the smart choice. Just film it like a Gorg.
Yeah.
But instead, they made a giant metal monster that was controlled by one man who could swing a giant axe at
A
you.
giant axe. And while they were talking about it and showing that big metal skeleton in the documentary, I kept thinking they were going to be like, that obviously didn't work. So we just made it a big guy. But it worked.
But they did have a moment where they had to remake it because they made it out of fiberglass, and then they realized, oh, that doesn't bend. And so they had to
Yeah.
remake it all out of foam and just make it look like hard metal.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's just one dude off to the side, like Peter Gabrieling, blowing things into a tube and making noises and
Yeah.
like working his hydraulic hands. And
But if only they had watched a single episode of Power Rangers, or I guess Super Sentai at the time, they would have
yeah,
seen you can build a costume like this, make them look big. It's really easy.
yeah. We know Jim saw Godzilla, right? So
Yeah.
they could have made a Godzilla. But they do end up
But
defeating that guy.
he picks up an axe. How the hell do they do that?
And this leads us into the final battle, which just takes place all over the Goblin City. And
I like
involves
Jim
a lot
talking-
of fun little gags.
I like Jim talking about this battle because he was like, we didn't want a bunch of blood and gore, which immediately just makes you think of like these guys ripping apart goblins. And then he says, we wanted a silly battle. And it's a very silly battle indeed.
Yeah, I love the idea that they that they had a version of this in their heads. Were like, oh, that's a lot of bloodshed.
Ludo goes berserker and starts ripping him apart.
Goes full Wookiee and rips off all the goblins' arms.
Okay, so here's the interesting thing. In the
Okay.
Goblin City, the fountain, did you notice the fountain?
Did not.
There's a fountain, and it's ringed by hoggles, dwarves,
Mm,
all dressed in the same outfit that Hoggle's dressed in, with the same
Okay.
hat and everything. So I think the intent maybe with that was that this used to be Hoggle's land, like his civilization lived
Oh.
here, and there were many Hoggles, and maybe they built the labyrinth for some reason. But there's some kind of like Jareth introduced some kind of perversion to the land or something that either turned all of the goblins, all the dwarves into goblins, or they just like came in and kicked all of the Hoggles out, and it was just him left.
I mean, I love that.
That's I don't know why else the fountain would be a Hoggle fountain.
There's also this sad layer then of like Hoggle being the last of his kind.
Yeah,
and like
Right.
the last dwarf or whatever his character is supposed to be.
Yeah. And
Um,
even just like one little scene of him talking it about that, I think would have been, even if he just been, oh, my people used to live here. That's all it needed to be. But just give him a little bit more like, I don't know, meat.
well, I think there's some standout moments during this battle. Like speaking of the silliness, where we have the sort of cannonball goblin
Mm-hmm.
who gets launched at the wall
Yeah.
and is
This
like,
is
"Did I
very
hit
much
somebody?"
the Muppets have gone insane and started going on a killing spree. This is how it would go.
Yeah, we get a machine gun goblin turret man.
And is that the guy that gets smashed by the rock? And then, so they don't want to kill anybody. It's very clear
Nope.
that nobody's dying. So he gets smashed by the rock, and it's like, that guy is dead.
Yeah,
And then it zooms in on the pile of him all smooshed up by the rock, and he's like, hey, no problem. And I wrote down that that's going to be my last words as well.
No problem. Fun thing, the machine gun goblin, not the voice, but the guy inside of the costume, Kenny Baker, R2D2.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And apparently Warwick Davis is also one of the goblins running around in this scene.
I think Ludo being able to control rocks is like the one step too far for me. I don't like that is how they solve their problem, because it's so specifically convenient that maybe if Ludo had looked like a rock monster, that would have made more sense. But there's just something about like, it's so Deus Ex Machina-y, which is fine. I don't know, it's fine. But just the fact that this guy happens to be able to be friends with rocks is so perfect for the situation that I have a hard time with it.
Yeah, it is an interesting scene, like visually, and I think like the behind the scenes made it more interesting
Yeah,
to me
totally.
that
Yeah.
they had remote control rocks and also rocks attached to people,
Uh-huh.
like that were running away from the rocks, but they were
Yeah.
like pulling them with a string, so it looked like they were chasing them.
Yeah, I like that too.
And I like the moment leading up to it too, where it is they're stuck in this house and they're sort of like escaping out of the roof because they're
Yeah.
like certain death is coming for them.
Because the goblins are like smashing through the walls at them.
Yeah, but Ludo sticks his head out the top and lets out his bellow,
His rock
and
call, and all the
yeah.
rocks come running. But yeah, and I do think this scene is really cool and really fun and well shot. It's just something about the rocks. And I do think if he had just looked like a big pile of rocks or something, then it would be like, well, obviously this guy can control rocks. He's made of the damn things.
It felt a little bit like when Daenerys releases the dragon on on the city in the less violent way. But
Yeah.
but in the end of Game of Thrones, spoilers, I guess, when she just wrecks that city with her dragons.
Yeah.
It felt a little bit like that.
Yeah, that's true. It also looked like the city from Muppet Christmas Carol, I thought. Like they just pushed it over, put it in storage for a few decades or whatever.
But after that, Sarah makes her way to the throne room and eventually to the Escher room because they needed to make the movie a little bit longer.
Yeah. They needed one more nonsensical set piece.
Felt like we kind of won and we maybe had beat the bad guys here, but what if we add in a weird, confusing Escher room to make the movie a little bit longer?
It does give you a couple great behind the scenes shots, like a David Bowie dummy on a like sideways on that train, like zipping around.
That wasn't a dummy though. I think it was a stunt double.
I think it was a wax guy, wasn't it?
There's a couple times I think it was a real guy,
Ugh.
but I think they switched maybe between dummy and.
And I think it's
guy.
also really cool that David Bowie did the actual like step all the way around the.
Yeah, he had like a pneumatic tube like shoved in his back or something that was just like,
yeah,
swoop.
Sure, why not?
We get like a Phantom of the Opera kind of song going on here, where he's sort of singing about like how he can sort of take care of her, and
he's like talk singing his emotions to her.
You know, and I'll point out, you know, when the musical opened, Sam?
When?
1986.
The musical Phantom of the Opera?
Yup. After this movie came out.
But not really very much.
That was maybe that would be a lot to change. Dramatically shift the tone of this hundreds-year-old story.
Yeah, Andrew Lloyd Webber runs in the next day and he's like, stop everything.
I've got it.
I just saw the finest movie. But that is weird because that is like, they are very similar vibe characters.
It's sort of, I think it's just that, you know, maybe this was more prevalent at the era, was this weird, creepy vibe.
It's in the zeitgeist that that sexy and creepy are close to each other, and also just like this kind of music, I suppose too.
But Sarah jumps off of the ledge to reach Toby because she's, they're in the Escher room there for a very long time, walking around, getting lost. Toby just kind of wandering
really
around.
for a long time, and none of her friends are here to like really contribute anything.
Well, she tells them she must do this on her own.
I suppose.
Which I feel like is really just because the Ludo puppet inside of the Escher room would have been chaos.
Be a big mess. He would just fall to his death instantly.
But this does result in her remembering her line from the very beginning of the movie, which is, "You have no power over me," which turns out to be the thing that destroys Jareth.
How come?
It's the rule. It's his fairy rule.
Oh, yeah. I shouldn't have told you that because that's such a good excuse for everything now. But what is he? What is the metaphor that he is? I suppose he's growing up, but
yeah, he is like adulthood, and she's sort of choosing to stay a kid for a little bit longer.
I suppose. Just an interesting concept that I think it could have made it for a way better movie if they had explored it a little bit more, but it would have been a way creepier movie probably then as well.
Absolutely.
So I don't know. There's no way to win this one.
I think it's just one of those things where, as much as I love this movie, I do think it shows how many writers had their hands on it, and how those things don't always connect. Because I'm sure there's probably parts, original drafts of this where don't take things for granted. It's the entire theme of the movie probably in one of the drafts, and someone was like, we don't really need that.
Yeah, but we forgot to erase this one part, or this part was just good. Yeah, and also, just the whole thing kind of had just a collaborative, back and forth conversation, like they mentioned a lot in the documentary, which maybe worked to its detriment ultimately in some ways.
Well, and this is when Jareth transforms back into an owl, who we do see throughout the end of the movie still. So he's out there
He's
lurking.
Still creeping around. Jareth ain't
still
giving
lurking. But Sarah is back home, where she runs upstairs, checks on Toby. And he's there. He's fine. He's just a cute little sleeping baby.
Yeah. I suppose also Jareth could be, this is also a fairy thing, he could be helping. He's just has the veneer of being nasty in helping. He's teaching her a lesson on purpose.
Right, he's the bad teacher.
He's the bad teacher, yes. The sequel to Bad Santa. Is there a movie called Bad Teacher?
I think there is, with Cameron Diaz.
I think you're right, yeah. Bad Teacher. With Cameron Diaz.
And Jason Segel, the same year he did The Muppets.
Oh.
But yeah, this ends with Sarah, packing away some of her things, and she sees her friends in the mirror. And it does seem like, is she giving up this childhood stuff? Is she not? Nope. She can call upon her friends whenever she wants, and they're there in her room with her to party.
Having a big party, so she doesn't ever have to grow up. Yeah, the ending, this movie calls for a bittersweet ending. I don't think there's much of an argument to be made that this ending works very well for the movie.
No, I do think giving up something, or even having a moment where, because she has like a freaking Jareth statue on her dresser.
Yeah,
like,
maybe
even if it was just that, where she was like, I'm gonna put this away.
I don't want to look at this guy anymore. He tried to kill me.
But that is Labyrinth. We did it, Sam.
We got through it. This is the last movie Jim Henson ever directed, right?
That's very true. Yeah, he is, we'll still watch the movies he was involved in, like The Witches and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. But as far as directing, theatrical film, this is his last one. But we also did watch the Inside the Labyrinth documentary, and I just wanted to touch base on that before we get out of here, to see if there was anything from that stood out to you, that you really enjoyed learning about, or that you were just sort of like, well, that's wild.
I feel like I hit on a lot of the stuff as we were talking about it, but I just would really like, I'm sure a lot of the people who are super fans of this movie have already watched this.
Yeah.
But this is just like one of those unfair things about Muppet Projects where you kind of do have to look at stuff like this to understand what went through it and what Jim was thinking the whole time, and why certain decisions were made. That does make the movie better. Like, there's even little bits of backstory you get for characters that's like, that kind of makes it click into place a little bit for me.
I did like seeing director Jim in action in some of this, in a way that we don't normally get to see, where he's just like, let me get the zoom lens instead. Let's get a nice medium shot of this.
It looked like, to me also, the big vibe I got was that watching the Dark Crystal special, that looked like chaos. And this
Right.
one, and he even mentions it in a couple of the interviews where he's like, this all came together so easily. This set looks much more like a normal movie set should probably look, where Frank is
Yeah.
not following him looking like he wants to bash his brains in with a baseball bat.
Yeah.
And he's just like, everybody seems really calm and everybody genuinely seems like they had a really good time making this thing. Like if
Yeah.
David Bowie's like, this was cool, I'm going to sit down for an interview, I feel like it must have been like a pretty good experience.
Yeah. No, I highly recommend everyone go watch it because it does, I think, add a lot to watching the movie.
Yeah.
And it's on most of the home video releases if you buy this on Blu-ray or something like that. And the whole thing's on YouTube.
To wrap it up a little bit, I like the Labyrinth better now. I always like stuff better now after talking to you about it for a long time, where I just like, I don't know, I can digest it a little bit. And yeah, I think I came into it way less negative than I've been thinking about this movie all week since I watched it, being like, I'm gonna be such a bummer. I hated this movie so much. But I think I didn't hate the movie. I think I just didn't like the final project. The final product is not for me exactly.
Right. And I'm again not a fantasy guy, so I was shocked at how much I like this movie. And
Yeah.
I think I could, much like Bobby, I could watch it again right now and love it just as much.
It also made me think that I kind of wish Dark Crystal had human primary characters. I think it would have been a way better movie.
I mean, I think that's exactly why they made this movie for some of the reason, at least.
Yeah.
Well, before we get out of here, Sam, I gotta ask, what non-Labyrinth things did you enjoy this week?
I finished Fallout. I think it was.
Nice.
I really like that show. It's really stupid. It kind of finds itself as it goes to some degree and gets a little bit less like weird and wild like the game, but it does maintain like a really good level of funniness throughout it and like emotion. So then I started playing Fallout New Vegas because this show is kind of the sequel to that game specifically. There's lots of references to it and characters in common. So I just started that. I downloaded this big mod package to make it actually like playable to people who are in 2024. So I haven't delved into that too much yet. But I went to see The Fall Guy, the new Ryan.
Lots of fall.
Wait, what's his name?
Ryan
the new
Gosling?
Ryan Gosling movie. Yeah, Fall Guy, The Fall Guy. I've very rarely hated a movie more than I hated that movie.
Wow, it looked good.
I
in the
know.
trailers.
I think part of it was that I was really excited about it, but
Yeah.
there's just something. It's like they didn't finish editing it almost, or something like that. It feels so slow, and the action sequences just are like not that exciting to me. And I don't know. They just feel like there's a few moments where it was like scenes that shouldn't have been left in, or like weird like inconsistencies within the movie. And the like Ryan Gosling and what's her name, who's married
Emily
to Jim,
Blunt?
and Emily Blunt don't have any chemistry, I think. And that I feel like is like the biggest, like people were saying like, I can't believe how well they work together. And they were funny at the Oscars when they were kind of doing like the secret advertisement for Fall Guy.
Yeah.
But they just didn't like, I don't know. There's just something about it. It was like, this movie was not fun for me to watch.
That's a bummer.
And it was just like, yeah, okay, I'm glad that's over with. Yeah, I don't usually just straight up dislike a movie, I feel like. And this one, I was just like, this movie is not good. I do not like it. So, yeah, how about you?
I went and saw the Missoula Community Theater's production of Beauty and the Beast.
Oh, cool. I've never been to that theater before.
Oh, it's a lot of fun.
Huh.
Our friend Catherine plays Mrs. Potts.
Really?
Yeah.
Whoa, that sounds cool.
Yeah, she's fantastic.
Is that the first show you've seen there, or have you seen other shows?
No,
there?
I've seen like 4 or 5 shows there.
Okay.
It's
cool.
very good. I saw Les Mis. I saw what did I see there? I've seen like 4 different plays there, and they're all very good. And I think like I didn't grow up seeing like community theater, so I don't know what the standard is, but I think I had set a very low expectation bar in my head. And so going there, I'm like, wow, this is great.
Yeah, like, it seems like very popular and well known in town. I just don't know. I've never done it. I'm a bum.
Yeah, I highly recommend it to anyone who's in Missoula at a very specific time of the year.
Yeah, you gotta get tickets too. So
yeah,
don't forget that.
I mean, Beauty and the Beast is probably still going next weekend, so you can at least go see it if you want. But I don't think anyone else who can hear this podcast can.
If you get a plane ticket or you live nearby.
And possibly a time machine, because I'm sure this will come out after that.
Fuck, yeah, it'll come out in like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, before we go, we got to let you know what we're watching next time. And next time, we are moving out of the summer of 1986 and into the fall of 1986. And what's that? Looming on the horizon.
No.
Yes,
Does it have a diaper on?
it has a few diapers.
No.
It's another season of Muppet Babies.
I'm not ready to go back, Matt. I don't want to do it.
We are kicking off season 3 of
No.
Muppet Babies.
3 of 8. 3 of 8, Matt. Or is it 9?
Which would you like to hear?
I would love to hear 8.
It's 8.
Okay, thank God.
But we will be watching the first 3 episodes from September of 1986, entitled Pigorilla,
Ugh.
The Best Friend I Never Had,
Ugh.
and The Weirdo Zone.
Oh, God. I know exactly what all these episodes are going to be. I could write it down probably.
Well, we'll see if you're right next time.
Also make a prediction. I'll put it in an envelope.
But we need to thank our friend Tuna for making the music for this podcast and Cassie Wilson for singing our theme song. Don't forget to go to commitment.com for all your commitment needs. You can email us at mail@commitment.com if you have any, questions, comments, concerns, links to Unseen Muppet Media.
Like if you're concerned about us for podcasting for 3 hours in a row about the Labyrinth.
I feel like there are people who would make an entire podcast about Labyrinth.
Minute by minute. This is
yeah.
Right.
I feel like we are not alone in our lengthy discussion of Labyrinth.
And in terms of content length to podcast episode length, this is great. This could have been, if we had talked about as long as we talk about Fraggle Rock episode, this could have been like a 6-hour long podcast.
This is almost a 1-to-1 length of recording to length of things we watched this week.
Oh, wow, you're right. That's very healthy. Never mind. I take it all back.
But you can follow this podcast everywhere on social media at Commitment Pod. And you can also follow me at Matthew Gatos.
And I'm Sam Schultz.
And as always, keep believing.
Keep pretending.